Alrighty, welcome to session one. I will do, for these games, normally I do a player recap. So basically, I asked you guys where we started last time and kind of bring us up to where we are. Because of the way that this game works, it's a little bit more structured than a lot of my normal games, and it's also going to be something we do every week rather than every other week or every 3 weeks or something like that, where there's less of a gap between sessions. Usually, I think the 2 weeks at the beginning is probably going to be the biggest gap, I hope, that we have. So I'm not going to do a big, extensive ask you guys recap stuff. I will just do a quick intro, and then we will jump right into it. So last time, you guys all got to the wilds under different means, and then we sort of ended at the point where everyone had gotten their character introduced into Gomelyite, who is our satyr-like person, the spirit that is in charge of this area and is giving you guys some safety and trying to figure out how you guys are going to get back to the prime material plane. And then as everyone is sort of finally introduced together, as everyone's put together in one place, Gomelyite casts a ritual, a divination ritual, to figure out some answers, to figure out maybe what's going on here, how we can help, what's going on, and the way that things fall through. The result of the ritual was a little bit unexpected for him. And we ended last session at the beginning of things where Gomelyite calls out, casts a ritual to call upon an oracular spirit to ask questions. And we finish with him saying, Zectherial, oh, oracular Zectherial. And when he evokes the name of the spirit, it starts to rain blood, which is usually not the best sign. And that is where we're going to go ahead and begin for today. So, Rosalind, I think you're like, I don't know if you're on push to talk or what's going on, but you have something that keeps queuing your mic. So we will start there for today. I will say that, does anyone have any quick things that they have questions about before we just jump straight into session?
No, ominous prophecies, ring of blood. It seems like great. Sounds good.
Cool. So, I guess the thing is going to be, I'm going to put everyone into initiative order. Initiatives don't really matter as much. Just make sure that
one question actually. How do you handle weapon drawing? Like, does everyone have their weapons drawn at the start of combat or not?
So unless there is a very specific thing that is happening, the assumption is going to be that you have your weapons, implements, whatever you would normally wield is already drawn. If there is a specific thing that you get in a position that makes that not the case, I will bring it up. Hey, in this particular case, you do not have X, Y, or Z. So, yeah, it is raining blood. I'm going to put Madrot at the bottom here. So the question then becomes, since I'm going to just kind of jump straight towards our local vampire / blood expert person, what is Margot's reaction to it suddenly raining blood in this little habitat?
Yeah, I think Margot's first reaction is trying to figure out what this is. Like, what the hell is this? Has you seen anything like it before? Is it actually blood magic or shadow magic, or is it...
So there have been some especially posh parties that have had raining blood. Mm-hmm. Usually that's it's a little extra, even for Tiri. But sure. You have been in a place where it has rained blood for dramatic effect. Mm-hmm. Although you're not entirely sure what's going on with this, I would say that your character is a vampire who is of an age that they would likely be able to correctly identify whether this was blood that is actually raining, and maybe get a little bit of extra information about it if that is something you wanted to do. Although it does mean you need to say drink said blood in order to copy definable information from it.
Okay. Does you think it'd be safe to drink this blood at all?
I mean, you know that there are things that can hurt you from drinking different types of bloods. There's poisons and things like that. Right. But generally speaking, those are really specific to like someone poisoned or changed
Right.
to harm vampires. There's not a lot of just naturally
Generally
occurring
harmful.
causes.
Yeah, she'd probably like put out her hand, let some drops fall on it, and taste it. Yeah.
All
See
right.
if
Do my scanners pick up anything?
So your suit does not pick up anything out of the ordinary. I mean, obviously there's dark rain everywhere. And the suit does not show any signs of enemies, creatures, anything like that on any of your sensors. So Margot, you take up your hand a little bit, you get a little bit of it and take a sip. The blood is blood. You're not sure what type of creature created it, and it's very acidic.
okay.
And it is something that you would normally associate with something that has been killed in fear. So it's something that dies in a terrible way, like a prey animal that is not appropriately put down. It is just like terrified and then it dies. That's what this sort of indicates to you. Is that's kind of what you would expect is blood that tastes like this.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. She gives an odd glance at our fuck, what's the word? The
Host?
host. Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Host. Raises an eyebrow, but lets this play out because her curiosity outweighs her fear in this moment.
Does anyone else?
It
looks like he's about to talk. Does anyone have anything else that they feel they would do immediately before Gamaliite sort of addresses you all?
Bastion would probably raise their shield over their head to get some cover from the rain, but other than that, no, nothing else.
Yeah, Ronald is going to step back on.
Yeah, I'll close my armor, and Gamaliite does seem conscious, right?
Oh, he's conscious, yeah.
So there is no obvious need to interfere.
He looked startled when it started to rain, but other than that, he looked basically okay. So, as everyone's kind of like taking their moment of like, all right, let's not get drenched in blood, Gamaliite will come forward, and he'll speak up a little bit. It's not super loud. This isn't a blood storm, but there's a lot of waterways and things in this little terrarium. There's a lot of things that could make extra noise if there's drumming blood on it. So he does project very slightly and says, "This is not the exact way I expected things to go down, but I have called the spirit and I have questions to ask of it. I'm hoping that these answers will help me understand how I can aid you in returning to your homes. I am certain there's been some alterations to this spell or to the spirit I have summoned, but I see no indications that the answers it gives will be incorrect." He licks his lips, and then you can tell that he doesn't have any blood anywhere on him. Like the blood is falling around him, but it's not hitting him.
Interesting. I think Margot like clears her throat and says, "This is the blood of prey, deathly front and prey. What is going on?"
Is it dangerous?
No more dangerous than any other kind of rain. Probably less dangerous than most kinds of rain.
Oh, no, I meant the spirit.
Spirits often are. Never heard of a good one.
If this spirit was here in full presence, that the results would be alarming, but my ritual, it does not do that. It evokes a spirit. It brings a piece of their essence here to respond to my questions. It does not bring the spirit itself.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how much these things can split up. These spirits can split up.
But I think since you are all tied together, and since there is some measure of myself tied into you, that it is at least worth your input on what questions I ask. But my first one, I think I have decided upon, and we can discuss what you would recommend or what questions you have after. I think my question will be as such. He goes and he sort of turns vaguely in, like off to his left. And when he does, you can sort of see this extremely ephemeral sort of haze in the air. To call it anything other than just like a little puff of smoke or something would be too much. There's nothing to identify what this thing might look like. It's just a little hazy area that does look a little odd in the rain. And he says, "Oracular spirit, who is pulling the strings of fate to bring these mortals here and to put them on the quest to return to their homes?" So as soon as he asks the question, the rain stops. And when it does, you guys can hear a voice answer. "The flaming vanguard who would drink. The flaming vanguard who would drink the heart's blood of winter."
Like, is that metaphorical, or do they mean literally winter?
You're not sure.
Oh yeah, that was in character musing. She was actually responding to that, looking concerned.
Does this
So-
make sense to any of you?
Drink, right?
Not
is the
particularly.
Well, like I said, it depends on if it's metaphorical or not.
Mm.
If it's metaphorical, then drink deep of winter could mean something like, I don't know, the cold bringing in the end of something, changing the cycle. If it's literally winter, that's a bit more insane. It's like just drinking the concept of winter. And
Margot
trust me,
tried to-
here, that's not, it doesn't have to be metaphorical.
Margot gives Rosalind a look of like, really? That's what you're worried about, but doesn't say anything. And racks her memory for any clues she might have read about that anything relating to winter and the Fae or what Heart Blood specifically might mean in this scenario, or a flaming vanguard or anything like that.
Now, again, to be clear with you guys,
Mhm.
the idea of the traditional Fae of the courts and things like that, it is something that exists in this world, but it is something that is not really, that it's like, they're fairy tales here. This is
Right.
something that people believe that might have been a thing long ago, but there aren't actually any courts that's for stories and things like that.
Right.
Like winter and summer, there are creatures that are associated with summer and with winter and with fall and with spring, but not in the more traditional hard lines of the Fae.
Right.
I don't. Is it just intelligence? I don't know how you have this macro set up.
If it's history, it would just be intelligence. Yeah. If it's
Okay.
Arcana, it's Arcana. But yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So. Put it as a token action so I can see it a little easier.
Sorry.
So you basically what I just gave you, which is that you've heard of these things, and there are some creatures of the wilds that do associate themselves with seasons. But for the Turi perspective, mostly they think that people just associate themselves more with the spirits. So the actual like major spirits of the wilds, they do either change or go stronger or weaker with the seasons. And you think that a lot of the other smaller creatures kind of go with the flow of the bigger, more powerful entities.
Right.
So it's traditional courts like the vampire courts. It's more the big scary spirit nearby says it's winter and we should all be, dressing in white. So it's winter and we're all dressing in white.
Right. Interesting. Okay.
Well, This does not make sense to me. I address the spirit. Spirit, how do I get back from here?
This is a question that I think would be worth answering, but I must ask the questions for them to be answered by the spirit, and I only have 3 remaining questions. I must be careful with wordings. You say that those of you are not familiar with this title, with this name.
I
Never
think
heard of it.
Not
Margot looks at Rosalind specifically, and then ponders.
Oh no.
Looks at her weapon, remembers the showcase of light from the earlier day, and just says, "Huh," but doesn't comment on it.
Okay. So Rosalind goes, a question that would I would probably ask the spirit something like, oh, what would we need to do in order to get faith to get us to fate to return us to our origin or something like that? She shrugs.
It might be unwise to assume fate is the only thing that can return us, though.
Right. I assume every one of us wants to get back home.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the way to get home can be varied and many, but most of the ways to return from here to the Prime are exceedingly difficult to do. Some would consider impossible, or would take many years or decades to accomplish. I think maybe you are correct to think there is a way of intention, understanding who is pulling the strings might help. That the answer given is troublesome.
I have a hypothesis, if I may.
I have one as well, but I'm curious to hear yours first.
She gestures at Rosalind. They bear the power of fire. They've shown it to us themselves. Then she gestures at, still learning names, give me a second. Arden, what is her character's Bastion? They gesture at Bastion and say, their kind fought as the vanguard in the past. Then she gestures at herself. I drink blood. So, she looks at, the remaining 2 and says, one of the 2 of you must be Winter and the other must be the Heartblood. Whatever that might mean.
I mean, wouldn't that mean that one of us is responsible for bringing us all here?
I believe what it means is that we are all responsible for bringing each other here.
Oh, I speak up at this point, and let me try to put this subtly. I'm here. I walked through a gate as part of an experiment, and that's how I ended up here.
I'm going to put the questions and answers in the chat. He didn't say exactly quite like that, but he said rather than who's pulling the strings, it was who's pulling the strings of fate to bring them here.
Right.
So he asked the first question, and he nods and says, maybe there is more riddle than answer. Maybe it was each of your mortal choices that brought you here, that tied you tightly with the strings of fate, and now we must find ways to unravel or direct it. But there is another answer, one that could be more concerning. The spirit may be answering literally, either the real answer or the answer that I wish to hear. The flaming vanguard, the one who would drink the heart's blood of Winter, was an old name, old when my mentor's mentor was around. It was a name for the Summer Lady, one of the ancient creatures of fable. But they are gone, long, long gone, and cannot return. I would wish that they return. And so I wonder, is something that would be able to confuse or shroud itself from this oracle giving me an answer that I wish to hear so that I must aid you in your quest?
So you believe appearance.
This all seems very convoluted. I suggest we just ask it how to get home.
Spirits are never that simple.
He nods.
Yeah. You're just going to get riddles within riddles if you try and answer a direct question, or worse, they'll give you an answer that's technically true but doesn't help you at all.
Gamaliite nods at that. The answer must have intention. One of you said it very correctly. I think intention is the line that gets us to things that are less like a riddle. I believe asking whether this is the return of something that I wish it to be, or infinitely more likely if it is something strong enough to deceive this oracle. How they intend for you to return could give us information and be significantly more specific than a single way of returning. If you think that that would be a good question, that would be my next question.
I do believe it is a better question than just a general way of returning. Yes.
If that is what you...
Sorry, just as a follow-up, do you think something like something powerful might want to follow us home?
That could also be a thing, but I believe the manner of return would tell us a little bit about what would be able to follow you home. Different things need different vessels, different conditions to be able to pass from here to the other planes. Knowing the conditions of your return would give me understanding for what might go with you when you return.
Okay.
So he turns back to the spirit. Oracular spirit, how does the entity intend that they return?
Rosalind braces herself for the answer. They don't.
The rusted star holding death without and fire within.
Hey.
So at this point, I actually intended to have a handout thing for you, Rosalind. I did not do this one correctly. So your character would be familiar with the rusted star.
Would it be a good reaction or a bad reaction?
Well, I will give you what it is, and then you can give your reaction however you think your character would respond to it. It is a fortress of cold iron.
A fortress of cold iron.
Yes, it is a large fortress made of metal, covered in rust, deep in the woods of the wilds, that is very specifically anti-spirits and anti-fae.
Mm-hmm. Right. So she actually explains that, and she goes, so that's actually interesting. If that's how we're heading home, then it wouldn't be a spirit leading us or a fairy.
Well, that
It'd be
sounds
something
better
else.
than the alternative of it being a spirit, for sure.
What is it?
Sounds more straightforward. I approve.
So we just need to trek to this place. Should we ask it what dangers will we face along the way?
So would Rosalind know if it was like abandoned or just just had stuff going on with it.
Rosalind knows the area of the wilds where it is. It's not crazy far away. It's maybe, assuming that you could get there without any shenanigans, it's maybe like a day's walk from here. So grand scheme of things, it's not that far, but it is specifically in an area that's sort of warded and sort of quarantined away from the rest of the spirits. So it's just a place that people don't go. The spirits basically treat it like maybe you would think people would treat Chernobyl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, that sounds great. That actually sounds great for Margot. Makes her less worried.
Yeah, it's like it's a place where the spirits and many beings here just don't like going. It's like she pauses and she tries to think it up more. Then she goes, and then she points at vampire lady and goes, it'd be like entering a sunny open plain at noon for you, I think.
Sorry, out of character. Could you repeat? It would be like a flame in open noon.
An open plain at noon.
Okay.
No shade, no trees, and nothing like that.
Well, I'm pretty sure I can cover up in other ways. I have a hat and a scarf. It'll be
There he
fine.
goes.
I think he means that
Yeah, it's a metaphor.
Uncomfortable is what he's saying.
Right.
It's not something they'd want to know.
I'm sorry, I just reread the messages, and is there a word missing in the first sentence? Because it is a very weird sentence.
Which one? The first question?
It should be
Yes.
them instead of they. The second question: how does this entity intend them to return?
Oh
Yes. correct.
no, I meant the first question. Who would the Heart's Blood of Winter? Who would do the what?
Drink. It would be drink.
You have to scroll down slightly because I typed it twice because I did forget the word drink the first time.
All right. Sorry, I
No, so good.
sometimes have trouble concentrating.
And I'm writing these questions. I have a bunch of notes, so I'm gonna have typos. I apologize.
It's okay.
So he's listening to you all discussing this, talking about what kind of place this is. This is a place that is not far away, and it worries me that I would not be able to accompany you, nor send you much of anything to give you aid. Some small pieces, yes, but the greater pieces, no. It is going to be beyond the power of most of the creatures here, myself included, to cross certain barriers to make it to the Rusted Star.
This sounds too easy.
Do
What is
I
the
know?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, do I know that death and winter are probably associated?
I need to be AFK for a minute. I'll be right back.
From the sense of like Fey and domain, not really, but from the sense of like normal sort of patches of time, yes. Like there is a certain thing of the trees wilting and going into winter that your character would be aware of, because the biomes do have seasons that they go through.
Right. So the Flaming Vanguard could be the thing that's held in the prison.
Could be.
And the Heart's Blood of Winter be the Death with Ouch.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Okay. So Rosalind goes, all right, so we have one more question. We know that something. Two, I thought it was three.
Yeah, it was 2 or 4.
I was going by typical magic number 3, right?
Makes sense, but no. He gets 4 questions.
This does seem like a trap. If this entity who's trapped within this prison is in there, it might be locked up there for a reason. And if we go there, we must be careful not to release it.
Where is your sense of adventure? I'm sure it'll be fine, so long as we can ask what troubles we'll face.
I have that
do not-
concern as well. If this was a trap, then it would disguise itself, would tell me what I want to hear, would tell me the source this comes from is trusted, and then have me lead you to a place I could not follow or help you before leading you to whatever comes after.
Well, I do need to return. I am just saying that we need to be careful.
It wouldn't be the first possibility I've explored, and might not even be the first dead end.
I believe, regardless of what answers we get to the questions here, that a more appropriate thing would be to be able to properly research the area, to research all of the pieces of the puzzle. I have another ritual that can put each of you in a suspended state of animation where you will not age until I'm able to properly understand all of the variables. It shouldn't take more than a couple of decades.
I will pass on that. I do not have a
No.
couple of decades so long as I'm in this place.
Yes,
I
I
do
would
not
rather.
have time for that.
Oh my gosh, I want this. I do not want to come back to find my sister and grandma.
Same.
He frowns but nods. You can tell there is a certain measure of he sort of expected that, but he was kind of telling you what his default answer be is he agrees that this looks fishy. So best practice, let's just put a pause on the whole thing and then take time.
Perhaps we should ask it what it intends to do if it gets freed.
If it's even imprisoned.
I guess the question here is whether we find it more important to know why you or why them, why they intend to be free, what they intend to do if they are trapped, or why you are the ones that are to free it. I think both of these questions are somewhat equally valid.
Right. Well, I do not like being held hostage by this thing.
I do not believe it matters much why we were picked to free it, if that is what we were picked for. What matters is what it intends to do with its freedom.
I actually believe the opposite would be.
Those two could be connected.
We can change what questions we ask based on what answers we give. I believe the important thing is, I think, some measure of understanding why you and some measure of understanding why it are important, but which it seems to me that you are considering its intentions are more important for the time being. Is that correct?
I would disagree, but if it is what the others wish, so be it. I believe that whatever it chooses to do is not my business, especially if we avoid releasing it. But what it wants with me sure is my business, and I'd expect the same from the rest of you.
Yes, it is true that we are jumping to the conclusion that we will release it when that is not guaranteed.
As someone mentioned, asking of intention as well. You can see him sort of intentionally turn away from the spirit slightly and then say, the question I would ask would be, what within the rusted star or the trip to get there and back to the prime does this entity desire? I believe that is vague enough, but specific enough for looking for intention to get an answer that we might be able to use. But I feel I'm missing a piece.
Well, other than the piece of me not intending to go to the prime, not sure which other piece you might be referencing.
He sort of waves his hand at that. I will say that at some point, or now, you probably would have had the conversation of getting from the wilds to the Shadowfell directly is extremely difficult.
Right.
Getting
from the more okay.
Yeah, getting from Prime to Shadowfell is very easy.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if you can get back to the Prime, you feel very confident that it will not be difficult for you to make it back to the Shadowfell.
Okay, that is good to know. Okay. So she probably
What
wouldn't
about
say that
me?
in that case. She would have just been like, then what's the missing piece? Yeah.
What about me? Because I need to land on a very specific location on the Prime.
Yes. I believe that would be difficult, but again, I do not know how this entity intends for you to return. And if they are going to go through with their bargain, and if you are going to be successful, there could be many ways that you would be taken to the right place or the wrong place. The Rusted Star is far removed from this place, physically close, but there is a void surrounding it that makes information about what lies within nearly impossible.
Right. Well, it is the only lead I have, and I must admit I am quite out of my depth in this place.
Well, should we just ask both the questions, what it intends to do, if it is freed, and what it intends us to do? Those both seem sensible enough.
I would ask of its intentions first.
I would do
Yeah,
the
I would think-
opposite.
I mean, the thing is, it might not need to be freed. It might be something else. So we ask his intentions first, and it says something about being freed. Then we can ask the next question.
We might ask it what it intends to do once we have fulfilled our task.
We do not know what our task is yet. So that would.
Knowing what
we
it
do
intends
not-
to
Fulfilled its expectations of us.
Yes, what it wants with us. That is a question we should be asking here.
That is a suitable question.
Why
That
us?
seems sensible. I suggest we stop ruminating.
Yeah, I mean,
Real
no
quick,
offense, but we have much less time in the world than you, so I think it is time to ask. So,
I'm going to
let's
toss
go.
this into, real quick. Wait. I'm going to toss this into a group vote real quick.
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
does your character go for? And again, the phrasing is not exact. Just throw into the chat either a 1 or a 2, whether your character is leaning towards a why you guys specifically or a what does it want. Obviously, answer 3 of you think it should be something different. But again, this is just the next question to be asked.
Okay, time to
I have
condense that
horrible
into character debate.
concentration issues. Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
So in the chat, there is the next question is either going to be some
Oh, you
variation.
have already written out the questions. Never mind.
Yes. So why us or what does it want?
And then the invisible third option of neither of those. But yeah,
Well, the third option being you suggest something else, and we discussed that.
yeah.
So Valerie, you're the tie-breaking vote here.
Oh, I am talking to myself. Whoops. I did vote a 2 though.
2. Okay. So he nods, and you can tell that he's also kind of on the fence. Although you know that it's probably he's on the fence more because, yeah, he might not be able to use this ritual very often, but the passage of time is not super relevant to these creatures. So I can only cast this thing every now and again. Yeah, I'll just ask it more questions next time is not really a concern, whereas you guys have something you want to do. So let me type this out real quick. Let me see if that is. All right. So he turns to the spirit again, does that sort of same ritual formalized voice and says, "What does the entity expect these to do within the Rusted Star?" "To loot the Aladari vaults and then return to the Prime."
Wow. I think that's the most straightforward answer I've ever gotten about this.
Yeah.
Do I know
Okay.
anything of?
Yeah, does anybody know what the Elendari are?
Yeah.
This is not the question order that I was expecting. So let me look.
That's very funny. That after two vague questions,
Yeah,
the
I was
Roslin is
just-
already setting up, stretching, going, okay.
So
It is also.
I would say that the only people that would have a chance of knowing the Elendari are Echo and Bastion, and neither one of them knows, has an idea of what it is.
makes sense.
Wait. So I can't roll for it. Okay.
I did roll for it. I rolled for the two of you guys.
Okay.
It's a knowledge check, so I roll behind the screen.
So we do not actually know any. You phrased that a bit confusing. Sorry. So we do not know anything.
Correct.
Okay.
So both Bastion and Echo would probably have I've heard that word before. I don't know what it refers to. To give a little bit of a DM hand tip to kind of understand what that means that I got for you guys behind the screen. That means you rolled something that was not great, but not so bad that you got incorrect information. You know what you don't know.
I'm sorry. I'm having trouble with voice chat.
Go ahead.
Can't see faces. Oh, okay. Well, I mentioned that I have heard that before, but I am not sure of what it is. Does anyone else know that?
Nope.
No, but I am happy to know that it intends for us to return to the Prime.
Mm.
The Elendari is it is inaccurate to call it a river, but it is easy for people to understand it as a river that separates several different planes that flow together that are difficult to reach.
Like
And what-
a slip?
Then why would the river have a vault?
He shakes his head. The river is the Alendar, and the realms beyond the Alendar are full of chaos and destruction. Terrible creatures with infectious diseases that transform and disfigure. If something is Alendari, that usually is, well, bad.
Ah, a suicide mission, I see.
Not necessarily. There are great rewards, great powers to be found in chaos, but it is, of course, by its very name, chaotic, difficult to tame, to control, to have dominion over and have predictable results. It is very distasteful energy.
Would Margot be able to tell if that's something that would be frowned down upon to similar levels as primal magic? Or would it be yeah, that's cool, it's magic?
So
yeah.
the way that I will say that your characters can recognize how he's talking about it is reversed from what you expect from primal magic. So how other people in the Prime talk about primal magic as being chaotic and difficult to contain, and this power source that's just inherently dangerous, he uses primal magic, and that is how he is referring to whatever this other thing is. So he's using the same terminology and the same sort of verbiage that other people use when they describe primal power, but he's just not referring to primal power with it.
Interesting. Okay. I think Margot just smiles and says, I understand. Then it should be fine.
I did see Madrat's mic cue a bit, so I want to make sure people have the chance to talk. Did you have something you wanted to say?
I'm just listening in. Okay. No, I'm here. I'm just.
Well, we have one last question. Would we wish to ask more about these vaults, or should we ask the previously discussed and thought of question? of what the entity might want with us. Or are there any other ideas anyone wishes to table?
I think
Well,
asking.
a specifically, what, what it wants from the vaults. That's
I believe that is part of our journey. That is why we must head to this rusted star, was it? First. I
Well,
imagine that is the case. There
we
will-
did ask. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut people off. Just
No, go ahead. Sorry. I was finished.
Okay. I will say that the question that we asked it wasn't exactly what I wanted to ask, because what we asked was what it wants us to do, and I want to know what it wants to do itself.
Yeah.
I do not wish to release a monster on this world.
great.
Margot shrugs. You won't be here anyways. What is
So
your
what?
role here?
So what Galmiite is he's gonna respond to that and say, my problem with asking a more general what the entity wants is that if this is a creature that is what it claims to be, then the queens of old have inscrutable natures. They have many things that they wished to have accomplished. It would be difficult or impossible for the spirit to answer. And if this is something strong enough to veil itself from being asked directly what is giving the answers or what is pulling the strings, I am concerned that that creature will also be of a lifespan that its desires will be varied and many.
And once you leave, it won't be your issue anymore. It'll be our hosts and everybody else over here. They will figure it out. They have decades to do it, don't they? We don't.
That is assuming it does not have any designs on the Prime.
Well, I guess it is valid. You all are from the Prime after all, but
So Galmiite basically, bounce back the ideas that you guys come up with and also entertaining his own. He would kind of add to the list a question of what mechanism specifically will return them to the Prime. So basically trying to specify why you guys, or a question of, asking more questions about the vault. What does it intend for you to loot? What is in the vault? Or why, like the other side of it, you're supposed to loot the vault and then leave. More information on how you guys leave. Or then the other question that he will say that he doesn't really have a great idea of how to phrase quite yet with the limited information of what the entity wants specifically.
Would it be feasible to ask a more general question of what we need to watch out for?
If you
Or
can
maybe asking what dangers would meet us might be a good
Yes.
idea.
that is my other concern.
Maybe make it more specific and just ask what is the greatest threat we will face.
But that is
Yes,
only
that
one of
does
the
sound
three.
good.
He shakes his head. Intention is this ritual. Intention. It cannot tell future events. It is not that type of divination. And even if it were, my divinations into a place like the Rested Star are unlikely to function appropriately. The Oracle can tell things that are. It cannot make judgments about what things will be.
Well, I suppose a way to rephrase that question in a way that benefits us would be, is there anything within the wilds that wishes harm upon us at this moment? And you will try to impede us.
Rosalind is going to tell you the answer to that question is yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, there are probably several Like, not even because of anything you did, just because of what you are and why you're and how you're here.
So they can certainly try them. I'm not scared of fairies.
So pause that for a second because Valerie was also trying to talk. So Valerie, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. Yeah.
Well, we might ask it if there's anything or anyone who wishes to stop us from this goal specifically.
So it would be, the question would be something along the lines of, is there a different entity that would look to prevent us from completing our task? Is that the kind of question?
For our arrival there, yes.
Or return to the prime.
So
Exactly.
because we're dealing with an oracle spirit here, phrasing does matter a little bit. Would you mind typing what your suggested question is in chat for me so I can see like the exact phrasing so that he can respond to the phrasing? Because you guys have figured out so far that some of the things that the oracle gives as a response is difficult to parse, but some of it's very clear. So not to be Archer, but phrasing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean that's a question for you guys, right? So a question of what other powerful entity or something, what other entity would be arrayed against you is a good question. It's phrased in some way. What does the entity want? What mechanism to get back to the prime? What an intent, like what's in the vault, and then why you guys? Those are all good questions.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sort of 5 is.
So number 1 is the why is the fight. Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead and toss in there if you think you'd be okay with like multiple answers, just to get a quick, hey, what is the group leaning towards? Because we want to get the decision made here in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, mine would be 1 or 2. Let me.
Maybe some phrasing like what I just put in the Discord.
Let me check. Okay.
I don't want to push you, Valerie, Echo, but have you been able to type out a version of what it is you want to say? Or do you consider like Arden's pretty good?
I am ruminating on it, but that is probably as good as anything that I could come up with.
So he would basically say, would need to be more specific, looking for intentions or the greatest threat. So what entities are there that would want us to fail would be too generalized. What would be the greatest entity that wishes for this specific task to fail would carry with it the intention and specificity in order to get appropriate answers.
So like, what is the most powerful entity that wants us to fail on our quest or on our return to the prime?
He nods.
Well, all right then.
All right, let's ask that then.
Well, it will only get us one entity that might have troubles. We might have troubles with, and that might lead us to, well, you know how a racehorse usually has tunnel vision. They give it those the thing on its face to give it prevent it from looking to the sides. It would do the same to us. It would give us tunnel vision. We would focus too much on one potential issue, and any others might slip through our grasp.
Well, that is a risk. It is also probably better to have clear info on one than a vague info on many, especially if that one is the single biggest obstacle to our quest.
Yes.
Suppose that is fair.
We can know
Some of
what
the other
bites us.
questions posed are more important to know the answer to, but If that is what the group wishes for, I will not argue.
I mean, it seems like there's no clear answer to what the group wishes for. Like, everything has 2 votes.
Yeah, can we just move forward?
Yeah, I know there is also an element, a meta element of you guys want to get forward. And I will say that, again, this is the DM saying the game is going to pick up significantly from here, but your start point is going to be the slowest pace of everything in the adventure. And we're going to kind of roll through things much faster.
Yeah, I will say that for my taste, we are talking too much about this.
Yeah, well, it is something that is an important piece, but we are basically at the end. So, so it sounds like from when people are talking and people that are wanting to just kind of start moving on, that 5 does sound like it's getting the most support at the moment. Does anyone have any objections to the, what is the greatest entity looking specifically to make us fail?
No.
That sounds good to me.
Sure, that's fine. It's not. It would be Margot's first choice. It would probably be her third, so that's fine. Yeah.
Go ahead, ask the spirit.
Right, I am. I'm just. I need to type it off so that I can have it for my notes and do this because I typed in my notes say basically what we would ask if you guys had no input, but you guys have a lot of input, so I need yes.
I also realized I typoed. It was not a 2. It was my second. What was a 3? So it would be 1 or 3. But yeah, that's fine. 5 works.
So he turns back towards the spirit. What is the greatest entity that would oppose them in this task? There is an answer. You guys feel there is something that's said, but there's sort of a deafening silence, like your ears begin to ring. Something was said, but you didn't really perceive it.
I love it.
So you see Gamaliite sort of sit there and he's looking and the spirit's still there. And then you get a repetition again, although this time it's louder. That sort of tinnitus ringing in your ear gets to be very, very loud. And you guys see cracks in the air form around where the little spirit, where the little mist is. And when the kind of deafening silence, the nothingness ends the second time, you guys can hear like the faint trilling of someone yelling at a very high pitch. And then it comes a third time.
Yeah, Margot's grabbing her ears at this point. Annoyance.
This must be one of those answers that they wanted hidden from us.
The Watcher, the Walker, he who comes after the death of the gods. So Gamaliite kind of goes a little bit over towards one of the seats, and then he very heavily plops down on the chair as the sort of power in the air dissipates, the spirit fades away, and you see him shaking slightly.
Are you all right?
Does that name mean anything to you? Or I guess it wasn't really a name. Does the way that entity was referred to mean anything to you?
Does that mean anything to Margot?
No.
Either? Yeah. Okay, cool.
It's one of the things strong enough to mask itself, to make an oracle give me the answers I wished for it to give me, would be one of the walkers. They are a dark entity that wish for the end of all things. Older than everything, older than the oldest tales. They seek destruction of all that is, untethering of binds and things that hold all will, all life together. There is
But-
no greater enemy.
Would they be able to pass a fortress of cold iron?
The Walker and its agents would have no problem passing through the fortress, although they would have great difficulty existing here in the wilds. This place is too bound by rules. This place is too coveted and too layered in traditions and magic that are antithetical to their kind. They would be hard pressed to exist here, but not impossible.
Or maybe they're in the river, the place we have to head to afterwards.
Well, on the bright side, I feel like, at the very least, if something like that is opposing us, then perhaps whatever's making it wants us to do this doesn't have that bad intentions.
Yes.
That occurred
Maybe?
to me as well. This is
Does seem to imply we're on the side of the good guys here.
at least not the ending of all things.
I don't believe there is such a thing as good and evil. But in this case, I sure like being alive. And I don't think the destruction of all things would be very good to that goal, so I'd have to agree.
Yes.
And it does make my task, my role in all of this much simpler. My nature is to mentor things, to help, to give advice and offer aid to things that deserve it, to determine whether creatures deserve aid of our type. But this, if a walker opposes your actions, if you intend to go through into the rusted star and do what fate bid thee, then I will offer all aid I can. Yes, it would be worth it. I could. He gets up and he starts sort of shuffling around and he's pulling things out of like drawers and stuff in the wall and setting them to the side.
Huh.
Margo's like peeking over his shoulder to see what these things are.
I'm just gonna wait for him to finish and not like interrupt him.
So he pulls out maybe a dozen different things and then he thinks to himself and sort of pushes back on the table almost everything. And sort of shakes his head and kind of scoffs at himself for pulling those things out. But he does pull out a small potted plant, it kind of looks like a very miniature tree. Like even the leaves look way too small and fine and delicate. He will set that aside. And he also pulls out a lute. And he hands the two of them to you.
A tree and a musical instrument. Is this some kind of joke?
Handle the lute and you may understand. The other is more complicated and really not designed for your kind. Bastion, this is a thing for you. I will instruct you on its use. He hands you the potted plant and he hands Margot the lute.
Bastion will put their shield away before taking the plant in both hands.
Margot takes the lute with the raised eyebrow.
So it is a magic item, and over a few minutes of handling it, you are going to understand what it does.
Okay.
I'm gonna say defensively, you'd be surprised what the right notes played at the right time can do.
And while he hands this and you kind of get an understanding, he basically tells the two of you the same thing of commune with this, handle it for a second, use your arcane senses and primal senses to feel this thing, and then I will explain how to use them. And while he's doing that, he says, there is one thing, however, that is the most antithetical to the walkers and its minions, something that is a test that is not perfect, but it is one that can be useful, a tool that must be added to your kit. They have a problem with names. Proper names confuse and frustrate the creatures of the walkers. They dislike repetition, especially in times of threes. one of the ways that you can attempt to find if a creature is been corrupted by the adversary, if it is going to be something working with the walkers, it will respond very negatively if asked its name simply 3 times.
Right.
I would hesitate to rely on this as your only tool, but it is one method. And while you are tied to one another, I would recommend it be something you ask of each other as soon as you have a moment after you have left my home.
Sounds good.
So yeah, he's going to give you this. So the flute is a +1 Vistani Bazook that's at the bottom. It's actually level 2. It's not level 7. I just was too lazy to change the level on it. So that's what it does.
Okay.
And then the tree that Arden has, or sorry, that Bastion has, will allow a one-time use of the ritual Solace Bowl.
Okay.
Oh, so it's sort of like a way to like take a break safely.
Like,
Yeah, so
does that mean we get?
Go ahead.
Does that mean we transport into the plotted plant?
Yes. So he explains that you go into the plant.
That's pretty cool.
It is pretty neat, yeah.
So basically explain that because of the way that this ritual works, the plant itself needs to remain safe. If it is destroyed, then you will be thrown out of the bowl. But as long as it is safe for an hour, you will get 12 hours of rest within the sanctum inside of the little miniature tree. He'll also explain, and I would kind of try to go through this as quickly as possible, explain where you guys are going, and saying that the star is on the far side of these quarantined area, a place of thin plain around your target. So he calls that place the Galaxy Trees.
Question, how big is the potted plant? Because Bastion kind of needs both their arms for combat.
So you don't have to carry it now. You probably shouldn't carry it in combat. You should probably put it in your backpack.
So you can fit in the backpack.
Yeah.
It's okay to put it in.
It's the size of a large thermos.
I know this is like a typical question, but I get it. It's okay to put in a bag of holding.
That's fine.
Yeah, good.
It is not okay to put in a bag of holding if anything is inside of the bowl.
Uh-huh. Okay.
We can't hide in the bag.
Yeah.
All right. So, he's going to give you this information. He's going to again sort of hope to convince you that because there is all this stuff, because you apparently have great forces arrayed against you, do you really need to leave right now? He could make, only a few years worth of requests and rituals would be able to get you a much clearer path ahead, a much safer way back.
Unless he can put some potted plants into the potted plants. I don't think we have that time.
Yeah. I tell him I appreciate it, but even a year might be too much.
Margot basically says, like, I would usually say yes, but not in this play.
So he kind of says, all right, well, yeah, you can't, he says something along the lines of, you can't fault me for trying.
Yeah.
Well, no, but like I said, I appreciate the offer.
And then he will get you food, water, provisions, basically all the supplies you would need for probably a much longer journey than you're going to take. And then will he wishes you the best of luck. He will do what he can to make sure that at least while you were within his domain, that nothing will bother you, that everything will turn from you, and asks you to follow the river north. And that will take you to the edge of the area where the quarantined rusted iron star is.
Okay. I try to be. I mean, how do I? I guess I try to sound as genuine as I can in saying like, I wish I could repay you in full for this.
So he gets a big, much more genuine looking grin than you've seen from him. Not that he's especially disingenuous, but he has sort of a teacher, looking to a student. No, yes, I'm proud of you. Sort of almost like a customer service smile on a lot of the times. This does look much more genuine, where he says, "You have already repaid me. I feel strengthened knowing that my nature will flow into me and give me power for many years to come. This action is more certain, and with more certainty becomes more power."
All right. Well, she gives a little bow. Thank you for the help, regardless.
Okay.
Best of luck to you, our host, and
Is there anything you
may
guys
you live long.
want to ask of Gamliite before you guys head off?
I would like to ask if he thinks it's going to take that long, because he said that he was packing way more supplies than it should take.
He says it should be less than a day's travel to reach the trees, but beyond that, I do not know much of what is within the quarantined area. I would prefer you were slightly overburdened with a few fruits than starve before you make it to your destination.
Very well, that does make logistical sense.
I would also like to ask him whether there are more practical strengths and weaknesses that the walkers possess. So, can they teleport or fly and that sort of thing?
The agents of the Walker are very many, but their primary attribute that they all share is a communal nature. Creatures that work for the adversary, that work under the walkers, they tend to have a unified purpose that is on an instinctual level. I'm not sure how much that answers your question for weaknesses. Their weaknesses are few and individual to the creatures that are serving the entity and not to their service.
Right.
So they corrupt. Interesting.
Well, thank you for the advice, anyways, and your hospitality.
Anything else before I move to the next scene?
Yeah,
Oh,
other than like
sure.
just thanking him, not particularly.
Okay. So if you've not had a chance or are not familiar with stuff, the ways that I do skill challenge stuff, please take a second to open up the handout that's in the Escape from the Wild section for the journal and look through the skill challenge rules real quick. I'm not going to be normally as explicit when I'm saying, hey, we are now entering a skill challenge, but because it's the first time and I want to be clear with rules and things, I'm going to say we're now entering a skill challenge. So you guys are going to be heading away from the protective area of Gamliite, and as you get past that and into the more overgrown, sort of dangerous areas of the wilds between where you are and the place that he's called the Galaxy Trees, where the quarantined area for this fortress is, the goal is going to be to get to the other side and survive. So this is a scene-based skill challenge. And the ways that they work are in the thing, but the short version is you just need to justify your action, explain how you're going to go and accomplish the goal. If you have a failure, you will trigger a complication, which you can either not deal with, and then it will do something for the overall challenge, or it might give you some sort of penalty or things like that. or you can deal with, and it will take a certain number of successes to be able to remove the complication from the board. So, does anyone have any general questions before I kind of pull it? I'm going to pull everyone over now. Anyone have any general questions about how the format of these things works?
No, this seems pretty straightforward.
I'll try to keep up.
Since we can spend encounter powers, I assume we cannot just take short rests whenever we want, even though they technically only take 5 minutes.
So the idea is that this has a time element involved that would involve you doing something over an extended period of time. And if you are using an encounter power to contribute to the skill challenge, it's not a single use. You're using it like effectively every time you have the ability to. So if you're saying, I'm going to use this encounter power that does fire damage to clear some of the underbrush, the assumption is that you're going to be doing that, every time you have that power come up. So it will be expended at the end of the challenge.
All right.
So you guys make it to the edge of Gamaliite's territory, and the kind of immediate change in the landscape from being this relatively free of underbrush area around a large river changes to being just chock full of tons of different types of wild plants. There's remains of creatures, but there's also a lot of things nearby that kind of look like they might be creatures. There's, for example, I don't know if people can see it because it is very hidden. There is a thing that kind of looks like a troll on the map here that's sort of sitting playing a flute. There's a lot of those things, and then when you look at them, they fade away. There are spirits that are gathered around that are inhabiting the different pieces in the underbrush that kind of flitter to and fro, some of which might be hostile, some of which might be friendly. So go ahead and roll initiative for me. When we're not in combat initiative, we go in reverse order, so I'll sort to the lowest one first. You do not have to have there's no like specific requirement that brain. There's no specific requirement that you guys go in order. However, I'm going to kind of keep an eye on where the end of the round is. I think Bastion's initiative thing is not functional.
You might have forgotten the end tracker in it. Yeah.
No, he didn't fill in the bonus where it says add your bonus here. He did not add his bonus there.
Oh, jeez.
But he rolled a 1, so
Hold on.
You'll probably go first. Yeah.
You saw. Can you see my roll? I got an error message.
I do see Madras roll. Also, when you do roll initiative, make sure you click on your token on the map and then roll initiative, and that's what actually adds you to the tracker, is clicking on your token.
Okay. Should I try again?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so my modifier is 5, so it should be like 5
Okay.
initiative.
Okay.
6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's all of us. We are here. We're going to put you guys in ascending order instead of descending order. Again, this is something that you guys can choose as you want. And the last thing is if it gets to everyone's turn and they've taken an action in the scene and the scene is still going on, if you do not have something you want to do, you may pass. However, be aware that you passing means that you're kind of not contributing to the forward momentum of things. Things take longer, complications are more likely to arise. So the first part of the challenge is getting through this dense and dangerous underbrush to get through to the area of the galaxy trees, which is supposed to be about half a day's travel away. So, unless anyone has any ideas, Bastion, you are first.
Would nature for navigating be useful?
That could be a thing. So again, the goal here is description of what you would like to do. So, for example, if you say, hey, I'm going to use my nature skill to get a lay of the lands and figure out what makes the most sense, what's the directions we were given, what's the easiest path through, something like that. My goal here is give me some narrative with some sort of tie to a skill and then shoot me up with a skill check.
All right. I guess, yeah, the Bastion will use their nature skill and sort of their connection to like the wild to try and judge which routes will be like safest, at least for them and their party to go through. Yeah, that's what I want to do.
So before you give me your nature check, which definitely sounds like a good nature check, I would ask for you, are you doing this as a power check? So are you opening up your senses to primal power and sort of looking at the way that energy is around you and picking a primal path that looks the least dangerous? Or is this more of a knowledge type nature check where you're looking at things that might be dangerous, plants, animals, that sort of thing, and trying to find your way through that way?
Power, that's sort of what I meant when I said using their connection to the wild. Plus, I don't really want to be using knowledge type checks with nature because I feel like given their backstory, they wouldn't really have that much knowledge about it, just their natural connection to it.
Sounds good.
All right, so I don't think I ever set up the skill macro, so I just have the skill check button.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
And my bonus for nature is plus 10.
10. So 24. So 24 is hard DC, which means you are going to easily get a success and a hint. So a success as you move forward. So as you go along, you can sense that there is a lot of flittering spirits and energies going around, but a lot of it seems to be kind of distraction. Imagine kind of going through a forest with a lot of flashy lights and people around you, but the path forward is actually pretty straightforward as long as you are not kind of drawn away and having your attentions taken away. So your connection to the primal energies allows you to sort of lock onto where you're going and kind of get onto your rail and follow this current of primal energies that is leading further upstream, further up the river. All right, so by default, Echo would be next unless someone else has something they would like to do.
Can I relate to the party that like the spirits are like being like distracting and stuff?
Yeah.
All right.
If it's okay for me to like take a little initiative here, I can maybe like roll stealth to if they're trying to keep an eye on all of us as a group. Like, if they lose track of Madrout, he could basically do some scouting and maybe get an idea of threats we're coming from.
Yeah, I was thinking of doing something similar, but go ahead if that actually works.
It is Echo's turn. So Echo, do you have an idea, or are you okay with Madrout kind of popping ahead to do some stealthy scout?
I'm cool with that.
Cool. So I will bump Madrout up. So that sounds good. Go ahead and give me a stealth check as you sort of make your way forward. 16. Luckily, you've got an excellent modifier, and a natural one is not an automatic failure. So that will count as a success for this part of the challenge. What you're going to find out is that your ability to stealth and your skills that you have learned on how to avoid notice in the mortal world don't really matter here. The fact that a lot of these spirits and a lot of these wisps and things don't have to pay attention to like solid objects and can just fly through them and seem to be tracking you through ways other than eyes, as many of them don't even have eyes. It's this sort of comedy of you hiding, and the creatures and spirits that are around, they're focusing a little bit more on you, but from their perspective, it's more like a game with someone that's like you're playing this game that they don't understand the rules to, because you're effectively playing hide and go seek with things that don't have eyes, and they're entertained by you to the point where they do not cause significant mischief to the party. Echo, do you have something you would like to do, or someone else want to?
I am thinking. Am I muted? I am thinking, could there be some sort of physical obstacle that I could bypass with dungeoneering? So a broken bridge or something like that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, especially because you guys it's a little hard to see here, but the intention is that in this spot here, this sort of cliff area right here, there is this riverbed that you're going up that's getting less and less like a riverbed. It's getting more and more like a creek. And there are some pretty heavy sort of rocky areas and signs of things that were ruined and things nearby. So if you wanted to use Dungeoneering to find a safe path through these ruins and stones, that would be a pretty decent use of the skill.
Yes, I will do that then.
Sounds good.
Oh, and I will use a talent shard before to give me a +1 bonus.
Sounds good. If you rolled, we were talking
Nice.
there it is.
Okay.
So that is considered. So that is hard +10. That means that is a great success, which means that if there is an ability to get a multiple successes on a skill challenge, you'll be able to get 2 successes, and then we get some sort of boon. So as you make your way forward, you see these ruins, you see these pieces that are together, and then very rapidly you're able to see that while the spirits and stuff are playing with Madrat, and while Bastion is sort of following the way that's built into the forest, there is this underground system that runs parallel to the rivers that the spirits completely avoid. And as soon as you sort of dip down into there, you get into these areas that show that there's a lot of water below ground, and these right on the surface caverns that run parallel to the river that have pieces of the walls that look like they are crafted, that this place was built. This is not just a natural thing, but you're pretty sure that there was something here that was sort of expanded upon. And as you make your way through and as you continue going past this, you realize that the speed that you're making is incredible. The path that you're going along is even more straight than the river somehow. And you don't have any sort of underbrush to go through. You don't have any sort of impediments in here. You're basically just walking down a hallway and are able to make excellent time. After a couple of hours going through this area, the outside changes significantly, where you see one little opening out into the outdoors has that sort of yellowish green glow of the late afternoon under the canopy. And then the next one is dark, and you can see night skies, stars in the distance out of the next hole. And as you continue up out of the sort of built structure near the riverbed, it opens up into a balcony, and you see below you that underground river that you saw a couple of times as you were traveling for the few hours underground opens up into this huge expanse that weirdly looks like the water is running in every direction. And ahead of you is the galaxy trees. So there are no ships, so please ignore the ships. But this is what's ahead of you.
That's cool.
Oh. I think that's a little big to quickly climb up on.
Oh, is the water there?
There is water there, yeah. So there is the underground river surfaces in front of you, and you see there is water in every direction.
Mm-hmm.
You're not sure how deep it is, and also the currents look a little weird because it looks like it's going in every direction. You think that it's probably going to be the first major task is getting past that waterway. So I've not had entries from Rosalind and Margot yet for what's ahead.
Okay. So this is going to be a little bit of a retroactive one, I think, just to. So Rosalind, of course, has spent more time traveling these sorts of forests and jungles than most people there, and she knows that often things can seem peaceful, even serene one moment, then explode into some mess the next. So she is, in particular, while everybody else is trying to work to help things progress, she is going to be keeping an eye out for any sort of troublemaking spirit or worse, some actual creature trying to see a bunch of little flesh snacks to eat to have for lunch. So that would be perception.
Yeah, perception sounds excellent for that.
Okay. So,
And I will have to carry through to this, right? So I would assume that your character's been doing this over the few hours and is now going to direct their perception to what's in front of them as well.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, it's just like they were such good rolls that we pretty much made it. So I was like, okay.
Yeah,
let me just pull up the
with the
skill roll.
With a scene-based skill challenge, usually it means that a scene is going to be completed before everyone has the chance to roll, which is why I'm kind of often like, hey, if you've got an idea, speak up because we're gonna kind of go through these scenes pretty quickly.
Mhm.
All right, so give me a perception check, please, sir.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. For some reason, I can't. Having a little difficulty finding my skill roll macro on my sheet. There we go.
Ooh. Okay.
That happened 3 times. Oh, wait. Sorry, they're
It's just
different.
one. It's just all separated out. So I've got perception is plus 19. Is that correct?
Yes, plus 19. I have a lot of perception bonus.
Okay. So with a 33 perception, you're looking ahead, and yes, the water is very chaotic and very wild. However, you're used to the fact that the normal rules of physics in the wilds doesn't really always follow through with the way that people expect them to be, and you've made enough missteps here in the wilds to know what to look out for, that, hey, that's not going to function the way that you think it's going to. And you're able to find a root system from one of these massive trees that is just below the water level, and able to take that as a path to get closer. One of the other things that you will notice as you take this root path and make it towards the base of these massive trees is, while you're looking a little bit to that, you also know that these sort of things, these crossings like this, will attract things, right? The idea of the predators hunt the water hole is true in the wilds very specifically. So when you go and cross it, you're specifically looking for other sorts of dangers and things like that. And as you make it to the base of the trees, you can see off in the distance that there is something big moving through this area, this grove of massive trees that had this strange galaxy look to them. And it doesn't look like they're specifically heading towards you, but from the size of the creatures and sort of your experience in the wilds, you're pretty certain that those are going to be like some sort of greater spirits off in the distance. Some of those can be very beneficial, some of those can be very negative, but usually knowing that they are there and then deciding how to approach is infinitely better than randomly approaching a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys make it to the base of the trees. You see the, Rosalind at least can see the spirit off in the distance.
Yeah.
What next? What would you guys?
Okay. All right. So, from what I understand, these galaxy trees, they're in another plane theoretically, right? And this is like sort of like where, like, a connection of it from what we know, what little we know.
So they said that the plane is thin here. It's still in the wilds, but it's thin.
Okay. I guess like Margot is trying to like use like what knowledge she has of magic and various kinds of it, especially the shadowy kind, to I guess like suss out any sources of particularly strong magic so we can avoid those and potentially like trying to veil us as a group with her magic a little bit, like make us less of a bright beacon of it and dull that like the magic that we have, since some of us are magical, like I think most of us are in some way or another. So she's trying to dull that, so any creatures that can also sense such things are less able to, I suppose.
Do you have any powers or abilities that would normally allow you to sort of cloak your energies or cloak the energies of your allies?
Closest thing I can think of is Shadow Jaunt with the insubstantial.
Probably not going to be very effective in it here. Say that your character is going to be aware that detecting these spots of powerful magic is going to be a task that's far more likely to be accomplishable than trying to map the present without a specific ability to do so.
In that case, I'll go with that route. I think she's more pragmatic and is like, well, I could do that, but it's harder, and we're probably more chance of failing. So I'll just make sure we avoid anything that might be dangerous. I'll point it out. Okay. Where is my token? Here it is. Skill check. Arcana. There, no bonus. 26. That's pretty good.
26. Excellent. So again, that is hard DC. So that is a success with a boon of information. And what you'll get from that is that there are spots that are like dead magic here. There are big chunks of the air that it looks like in a couple of places, if you jumped significantly off the ground, like you got maybe 10, 15 feet away from one of these trees, there would not be enough magic to sustain you. Like it would actually hurt you. It'd try to kind of think of like the vacuum of space, right? It would try to pull your magic out of you if you went into those areas.
Okay.
So that is there. And then the other thing that you'll notice is that off in the distance, as what was mentioned by Rosalind, there is what looks to be a wake of magical energies. So there is, think of the, you know, if you've got your third eye open, your magical senses open, imagine seeing like a ship and you see it breaking the water in front of it, only to your eyes, you're just seeing that as magic. It's whatever it is sort of making this furrow of energies that is making it not a ton of energy, doesn't look like it's going to be harmful, but it is enough to kind of fill the little voids and stuff that whatever entities are over there walking through would be able to get through without harm.
Okay.
So at the end of this, I would say that one, we're now in the next round. And then the second thing I would say is you guys see off in the distance the this creature that's moving vaguely in this way. And it's very slow moving in the distance, but since it's so large, it's actually moving pretty fast.
Okay. Just to clarify, so I understand, these like sources of energy you mentioned, they're not dangerous, but they're created by whatever entities are in here, right? So like going closer to them, I mean getting detected, but it also means basically safe passage because you're opening that path, right? Is kind of what I understood. So long as we don't get caught.
So I'm going to kind of draw it a little bit here. They're all around you. There are these pockets where there's nothingness, where if you step into one of them, it's going to hurt you.
Okay.
This creature, as it's moving along, it's creating this sort of area behind it that is full enough of residual magic that you're not going to be hurt by it. So assuming that the creature itself does not cause you any kind of problems, following behind it would make it easy to traverse the area.
Okay, interesting. Got it. Thank you. That does clarify that. And it could use the pockets to like harm the creature and stuff like that. Okay. Potentially. Okay.
Okay, I have an idea, if I may.
Go ahead.
All right. Question: how far into the skill challenge are we? So far we're making pretty good time. I don't really see the need to burn resources.
So you guys seem to be doing fairly well. So the first scene took 4 successes. You did not get any failures or complications, and you guys are 2 successes into this one. You're not really sure how far you need to get into it, but you feel like you've made it a decent way into the trees so far.
All right. So I would like to intuit a good path forward using my insight, because this place feels like if you feel where you're going, that's more important than like actually seeing where you go.
Sounds good. Before I have you roll, the Rosalind did sound like they wanted to speak up. Were you saying something, or was that an accidental cue of the mic?
That was me going. That was me going. Nodding along.
Cool. Apologies, Echo. Please make your check.
All right. All good.
And I will let you know that this is going to be on a slightly lower DC. You didn't actually need it to succeed. However, that being said, once you start going into this, you start kind of feeling it out. It's not as complex as slipping is, but there is a similar feel to it, right? There are these holes that you can sense. And rather than jumping back and forth very rapidly between planes and skimming along the surface of things, it's rather that you're almost like you're walking on a big piece of Swiss cheese, where you're allowing your intuition to just take you out of the problem areas rather than finding the one true path.
Well, this seems familiar. In a way.
Yeah, the comparison I would be used as a minefield, but I guess that's a little too exaggerated.
So one thing I will ask for you guys is you're now at the point as you're passing through, you can see this creature is moving not completely perpendicular to you, but you will cross its path at some point. Would the group default to coming to the spirit? Would you wait for it to pass? What's the plan? Because you can see it's not walking towards you, but it's going to cross your path if you continue moving straight forward.
It looks cute, and I want to see if we can interact with it.
Margot would suggest staying out of its sight, but probably not like diverting too much, like trying to, like, I guess find a spot where it might not immediately see us, but without going too far off from where we are, I guess would be the first suggestion.
When you said it looked like we were like going to cross this path, do you mean like does it seem like it's intentionally heading towards us, or does it just happen to be on that path?
So this thing is really big and very appearing very kind of ponderous. So it's moving quite quickly because it's big, but like to scale, it's moving very slowly, and it looks like it's gonna slowly cross your path. It doesn't look like it's intentionally intercepting you. From everything you can tell, it doesn't look like it perceives you at all.
Yeah, it's like
You said that-
I'm assuming that it is giant. Is that right?
Yeah, it's massive from what was said before.
Yeah, so the things that are on its back there that you can see, so up here, those are like full-size trees. So those are each of them maybe 50, 60 feet tall.
Okay, yeah, that does give me a good idea of the scale.
In that case, I agree with Marco's plan to just like try not to get in its way.
Yeah.
Yeah, just duck and cover kind of deal.
You did say, like, it's not, if we just follow behind at a distance, it wouldn't, like, there wouldn't be some kind of tailwind or whatever that is dangerous, right?
Yeah, it would actually be helpful, right? Wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Rosalind thinks it's cute.
Did Rosalind get the message I sent?
Oh. That was in Discord, right?
It's in Roll20, but I can also send it in Discord if you want me.
Okay. Oh. And Rosalind's all like, actually, I want to get a closer look at it.
It's a spirit.
Says,
Close.
yeah,
You know what it is?
and you are a person with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. But does that mean you're the same as me?
How close are you intending to get to it?
Please don't touch it.
Spirits are destructive by nature. You don't mess with that kind of magic.
So the
I'll be
answer,
sure to tell the Spriggy that he's dangerous. And she starts kind of poking a little closer to it.
I follow, curious.
If it tears us all apart, it's their fault, not mine. But Margot would follow. Like a ways behind, but would follow.
I'm
So
gonna,
go ahead, Mark.
no, it's just, can I, okay, no, actually, I do want to clarify, are you touching it? Are you literally poking at it, or just like?
No, she's just gonna get a little closer.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of trail behind, like pulling away from danger distance.
I follow very closely because it looks cute and I'm curious, and I have no idea what this is.
So it doesn't actually take that much time. As you guys sort of change course slightly, the energies let off by this creature, as they get close-ish to be able to be, basically if you're on the outside edge of its incredibly huge sort of aura of energy that it's giving off, that would be close enough for Rosalind to get an idea of it. And about the time you guys get there, you guys start to hear talking. And once the talking starts up, you're able to see that one of the trees, one of the things that's on its back, looks a little different. And as you get closer, the fact that the trees are not all the same, that there is one of them that's a little different, becomes apparent, and you're able to see that there is something else on its back as well.
Ooh.
So, Rosalind, as soon as you get within the aura, you are able to recognize what this thing is. So you should now have a handout called Rosalind's Perspective.
Okay, let me take a look and see at that.
Oh, nope, it did not directly save. 1 second.
Oh boy.
So there you go. So if you look under the Escape from the Wilds in Encounter 2, you have your little section of Rosalind's Perspective. So take a second to look at that.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
while you're looking at that, you guys can hear the two things are having a conversation. And while they aren't talking that loudly, you get the sense that the only reason you can really hear them is because it is very, very quiet here. There is this sort of, you guys are standing in the edge of a void, right? That the sound travels especially well. And when the big sort of grub-like pig thing talks, it has an almost merry voice. Kya aparane isparai min suna hai nasinhar. Yal atman kaguna hai givashin min hapali barkale gisana haim. The little tree spirit or whatever that thing is that's on the creature's back responds back in a very different voice that makes you feel like the kind of thing that's in the tickling of the back of your head is like crumpling leaves, like leaves in autumn. Ve bahut si katbit katan kahat kehen leven jab nasen hari ket bial ati hai to kansi sarkahai.
I think I recognize them. Like, not personally, but gossip, basically. The big guy, he won't eat us. For now. As long as we're not here in like a month or so, we'll be good.
Could you
So
convince them?
I will say, Madrat, that you can understand the language enough that you've heard different types of Elven frequently enough to be able to recognize that they're speaking in some sort of Elven. Basically, you know it enough to know, oh, maybe I should use my comprehend languages if I need to do something. And you know that they're speaking some kind of Elven.
Oh, okay. Can I just step back for like 2 minutes? Sorry. Someone's
Okay.
calling me. Thank you. Sorry.
And Rosalind, you have Sylvan as one of your languages, and the language that they're speaking is close enough to Sylvan that you're going to get bits and pieces of what's said. So I'm going to send this in Discord because it's much easier to send in Discord, but I'll also put it in your perspectives thing.
Okay.
So your character knows enough to know that this is not a very great translation. This is more of a, I can kind of sort of get some of the words, and I think this is more or less what they're saying.
Okay.
You know what? Sure, I will give comprehend languages a shot.
Okay.
Hold on. All right, hold on. Let me just. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. Key skill is Arcana.
I don't need to check for the spell because I don't think it can fail. What you will get is that it's definitely not the right language. It's the right family of languages. So you get close enough and you can feel the spell sort of lock in to try to translate what's being said. It doesn't really match up, but it can get you close enough and give you some bad versions of translations to get you partway there. So I'm going to send you what you get as the partial translation.
Oh boy.
I'm gonna repeat this verbatim. Vishay is the giant creature.
Yeah, Vishay is the pig thing.
Yeah, actually, you know what?
Paribaton is more like the tree person.
Yeah, and
Okay. I'm just gonna
Roland
repeat it
actually
verbatim.
introduces their names.
One second. Pause. So I would appreciate if I do send you guys something specifically to not say it verbatim, because the whole point is to have your character sort of give their version of events, right? And this is not a verbatim translation. This is the pieces that you understand with a bunch missing. So how your character says this is important, because if it isn't important, then I would just paste it into chat so that everyone.
Okay.
It's not specifically to use, it's just a general rule that I'm asking for.
Okay. Then in that case, I'm gonna say that giant lumbering thing is saying something like, it's asking the tree person if it hears destruction, and this destruction is like not general idea of destruction, a thing, a force. It also says the water is showing us new currents, and the answer given by the tree person is that, well, first of all, he thinks the pig guy talks too much, and destruction is the source of new waves. It sounds like the tree person is reprimanding him for stating the obvious.
Interesting. Do you believe they were talking about us or about?
I think they're just talking about the weather, to be honest.
They could be, or they could also be talking about the ones who oppose us.
Exactly, that was my other guess.
I think we've made too much of an impact on them.
Anyways, I'm gonna go say hi to them.
Can you talk to them effectively enough to do that?
They probably know. I can speak some.
Elvin, I'll point out it's Elvin something.
Yeah, I can speak something. I can speak some of it. You don't live here that long without knowing how to say a few words. At the very least, I can say hello and see if they know common. And if not, well, we can use monosyllable single syllable words. And at that point, she then she pauses and ponders for a moment. How to actually catch their attention, as there obviously the tree spirit was still pretty big, and we are not.
Before you do that, are you certain they do not believe us to be this cause of destruction? Because if that is the case, then we have to fight those massive things. Do you have a plan to win that fight?
Have we destroyed anything here yet?
The tree spirit is a friend of my patron, or at least they like each other.
Very well. I'll trust you. But if they try to fight us, I might just turn tail, so be careful with what you say.
I will say that we shouldn't be around the big guy in a few weeks, as his fasting period is coming to an end, and he'll just try and eat everything in the area at that point. But we're not going to be here in a few weeks, hopefully.
What it says, they seem pretty casual about this destruction thing. And by the way,
that's why I think I was talking about the weather.
Oh yeah, it is kind of like they were talking about the weather.
Very well, then. I will trust both of your insights.
All right, so Rosalind uses some of her Sylvan to, and she switches to Sylvan and calls out an ingredient saying, what would be whatever the traditional ingredient of two travelers meeting up in the wilds would be?
Depends on what they are. But if you're greeting it as either a fellow spirit or like a servant of a fellow spirit, there would be a sort of, not really a spell, but like a sending of a little bit of your energy as sort of a handshake of energies. That would be the traditional way to do it. That would be the most polite version of this, is to actually say nothing and just sort of send a little bit of your energy their direction as sort of a, hey, I'm here, and, notice me, I notice you.
Okay, so she kind of gestures to Vampire Lady to probably turn around as a brief flash of light exits her hand.
So when the light flashes, you see the Vishay, the big one, kind of look off in your direction. And again, that every motion that Vishay makes is huge but very slow. But it does notice that you're there, and then slowly start to trot its way towards you. But well before he's, close enough that a normal speaking distance would be. So he's still, 500 yards, 500 meters away. He begins to speak in common, or at least what sounds like common, in that same sort of jolly voice. Oh, if it isn't Spirgayan's little ward. Oh, this is interesting. What are you doing here, so far from home? And then you hear the spirit on his back say, not only Spirgayan's ward, but one of them carries a mark of Sherrock.
At that point,
I slowly raise my hand.
What is this, Sherrock?
He was the if you didn't encounter him, he was a sort of giant elk guardian back in the more woodsy area.
Oh.
You didn't encounter him, but he has a territory that's next to Spirgayan's territory. So Rosalind would know of Sherrock the elk.
Yeah. She goes, and at that point, Rosalind explains, we're seeking out the rusted star. There's something we need to find there.
Oh, wonderful. Little mortals doing chaotic and crazy adventures. I do love these sorts of things. I hope you survive long enough to tell us the tales.
Ideally, we'll be leaving the prime material afterwards, so we might not see each other. But I'm sure that Spirgayan will be able to regale you the tale if you can get it out of him.
Oh, quite. It will take some years if it's a story worth telling, but if it's a story worth telling, it'll be fun to have the years to listen. Yes, but you make such tiny paths. How are you to make it, little ones?
One step at a time, usually.
They are here at the behest of life. Something ties them together and pulls them forward.
At that point, Rosalind gets the idea, and she goes, let me just check her name again. All right, Vishne Parvatian, would you do us the honor of helping guide us to the rusted star?
Oh, yes. Could do. A little bit of energy here, a path there. he shakes his head, and you see this sort of wobbling flab and this wave of what looks kind of just like fat, but it's not very he's not a very solid creature, so it looks especially weird, like a very fat creature moving its jowls, only it's made out of like partially clouds, so it doesn't look quite right. It looks too airy. And he says, "But that is an ask a favor. Are you looking for favors for your patron, looking to cash in something else?"
Oh boy. All right, so she looks back at the group. This is an interesting thing. So the question is, would Spaghetti and mind be casting a favor, which I think Permaxian owes him? Or would that make him not happy?
I can't really understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so she goes, so basically, I think either Spriggan owes Pervartian, she points to the tree spirit, a favor, or he owes him a favor. And I'm just wondering if we do cash that in, what he would say about it. Especially since I think it would just be speeding it up rather than actually making progress we couldn't.
Yeah, so I also typed out the thing in a little bit more plain text, since there's information you guys might be missing as well, as it's giving you more or less three options. If you wanted to help, you can either say, we're going to owe you one, and that means something for these spirits, or Rosalind can try to cash in one of the favors that their master either has or can owe. Or if you guys have a favor with another powerful spirit, then you could use that and say you're giving up the favor you have with them for passage to the end of wherever that you guys are going through the
Going
trees.
to ask.
I must ask.
Right, so real quick, Madrat first, then Echo. Go ahead.
Gonna ask. So is that mark from Sharrock, valid here? Like,
Yeah,
like,
that was what I was going
can
to
I
ask.
spend that?
Yes,
Like-
effectively. So that is an option.
Okay. Just saying, like, that'd be a quick way to try and get us out of at least this situation without any strings attached. But I'm not gonna like overrule anyone, so you can talk about it.
So long as I don't owe them a favor, I don't mind what decision the rest of you come to.
Real quick, before anyone else says something, Echo, you did have something you wanted to say.
Oh, true. Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to ask the party. The creature mentioned a mark of someone. Who carries that?
One was Rosalind and the other was Midra.
Oh, you are touched by the spirits as well.
Yeah. On my way to Galates.
Well, I do not know the relationship between you and your patrons, so the decision whether you want to ask for this favor or not is up to you. I would be willing to help them.
I would feel that it is a bit rude to cash in a favor on behalf of your master.
Right. And I've been helped, but I think when we get home, it's better not to have any strings attached to this place. I can give up the favor I was given.
Yes, exactly. I am not willing to owe them anything.
And then goes, well, it depends entirely what you owe. Like, Spaghetti mostly just asked me to clean his house.
To do what? Sorry, could you repeat that out of character?
Clean his house.
See, I'm not willing to do that. That is far beneath me. And
So, who cleans your house then? You just live in the mud?
I have servants. Has any let's say,
And who cleans their house if they're busy cleaning yours?
that is their
Like-
problem to deal with, not mine.
It
That
is
doesn't seem very nice.
my
of
own
you.
place.
Who cleaned your house while you were cleaning Spriggan's?
Oh, it's also my house.
Convenient.
Echo leans over to Rosalind and asks them if it would be impolite to ask these creatures their name 3 times.
I don't think so, actually. Like, as he said, it's about things that are connected to the real. In fact, here, hey, could you introduce yourself to my friend here? And she points to one of her party members.
And so Vishay is the big one. He is going to respond much faster and is going to kind of always talk over the other one if you're doing little conversations with him. But he will say, oh, yes, I am Vishay. Vishay, the one that consumes. Although right now I'm quite full.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Could you repeat it? Well, who are you again?
You see the sides of his mouth kind of extend back to where it's way further past what you would expect normal mouth to be able to go to. It goes like down his sides.
Mhm.
And then it snaps back to looking like normal after a second. Ah, Nasenhari. I am Vishay, spirit of consumption. My name is Vishay, spirit of consumption. They call me Vishay. I consume as spirit does. And he gives very weird, like flowing nod of the head that kind of looks like a bow. And that symbol that's on his like snout forehead glows and then fades.
Okay. Yes, Margot nods and is satisfied since they did repeat it 3 times, so they probably get why she did what she did.
I will say a couple of you guys have passive insight high enough to recognize it understood what you were asking it to do.
Mhm.
All right. So, before you hand it over, we will likely be leaving the material plane soon, so we might not be able to give you any favor that would require long term. So, if there's anything in the immediate future, like within the next couple days, you would need done, perhaps I might assist you with that instead of my companion having to hand over his gift.
We do not have a couple of days.
We don't know how long this will take.
And
I will be
if
alive
it
in a couple of days, most likely.
and if it's something that's time sensitive, we cannot afford to be delayed.
You would know that if you offer for a couple of days service, that's going to be a pretty binding offer in this place, especially to one of these creatures.
Well, no, she didn't say. She said any sort of favor that could be accomplished within the next couple of days.
Right, I understand. If you offer something like that, that means that they have the capacity to be like, okay, I want you to go the exact opposite direction for a couple of days and do something for me.
Well, she did offer an offer instead of what he turned over. So she's trying to suss out what they would ask about her. Ask for her.
I mean, a couple of days are not much time in this place, are they?
It is not. Not for them, but it is for you. So that is the thing you can ask, right? You can ask what sort of favor it wants. That's not an...
Yeah, that's the gist of what I was asking. If she was just giving a qualifier that they probably go soon. So if they had an idea, it would have to be something that could be done soon. And you know what's fine? I feel like it probably isn't. Since she's been here for like years, a couple of days probably isn't a big a deal for her as it is for the rest.
Mhm.
I just realized.
So I guess my question to you guys is: are you going to ask the spirit, like, what would you want as a favor? Like, is
Yeah,
that a normal thing to
Yeah,
ask?
Sure,
Yeah,
that
I'm
is not
gonna-
binding, is it?
Huh?
That isn't binding, is it?
No. Like asking what you would want is not binding.
Then I'll just
Yeah.
ask it.
That's the gist of what she was asking. I was just dressing it up.
I'm not looking for anything in particular, although having some things in the back pocket could be good. He gives his sort of flabby sides a shake, and you see the tree in his back wave side to side, and then you hear it kind of hiss like a wind through crackling leaves, and then Vishay stops shaking side to side and kind of chuckles to himself. I have a question I wish answered, a connection. I could use a mortal's soul. The process could be uncomfortable. Or the spirit of the hunt could be used to draw a hunter. Either would work.
Does it still have to be ours?
No mortal souls. One thing I know is that you do not bargain with souls here. It never ends well. For you.
Does
I
it
will-
have to be one of our souls, or could I offer someone else's?
I will say during this entire conversation, and now probably you asking directly to one of the creatures, it becomes more obvious. They don't seem to notice you at all.
Hmm.
And when you talk at them, they don't seem to hear you either.
That's strange. Okay.
Do you have a soul you were intending to offer up?
Many I could. When I get back home, yes, I could very easily send some here.
Offering up someone else's soul seems immoral.
Morality is a question of point of view.
I don't see it
cattle.
like that.
They are cattle. I do not mind offering their souls. However, it seems, and she gestures at the Parvati, I think was her name, right? Gestures at that one, the tree one, and says, "I don't believe I have a soul," which is why they don't seem to notice me at all.
Do they notice us talking to them? To her?
Yes, but that doesn't seem to bother them. Like they aren't curious that you're talking to something they can't see. That just doesn't seem to be an issue for them.
Side question, follow-up question. Do they seem to be noticing Bastion?
Yes.
That is weird. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, from what you know, if they're noticing things with souls, they shouldn't notice Bastion either.
Curious.
An excellent observation, I would say.
Could Margot try to make a check about what the exact reason might be that they can't notice her, and the other one does?
Neither one of them notices you, so
Oh, neither of them does. Okay.
neither one of them is noticing you.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Could she make a check about that to see if she can gather an answer to why?
So I did already do a knowledge check for you,
Okay.
and the answer that you had is basically the same thing that you guys were already discussing. So I didn't
Okay.
double. But these things seem to be seeing each other. Like neither one of them has what looks to be a physical body, so they're looking like soul to soul. So they might not be able to perceive you using the way that they communicate.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I have a proposal that we might offer to them. We are somewhat lost on our path, and we ask them for guidance. So it would only be fair if we offer to them that should they ever get lost in this place, we could offer guidance to them.
I would not be willing to do that. No.
Also, I
Let's
feel like
see.
they know this place a lot better than we do. They're unlikely to need guidance.
Yes,
That's
that.
the point.
They are wanderers. They go where they please. They aren't bound to any one spot.
I feel like we should either
I don't know what we are still arguing, seeing as Midrotham themselves has offered to deal with this payment.
1 second. I do want to hear.
Okay.
Hang on 1 second. I do want to hear what Bastion has to say.
Oh, sorry.
Continue.
I was just gonna say pretty much exactly what Margot was talking about. Like we have a solution. Let's let's not like bind our souls to them or anything. Let's just offer that favor we have.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm okay with it. Like I said, it's to me, it's like a way to get this resolved without having any strings attached moving forward.
Seems
All
like it would be a win-win
Rosalind.
situation.
Rosalind shrugs since it seems like her alternate offer didn't go through, so she just gestures to him and says, "All right, go ahead."
Right. We appreciate it.
And so the if that's what you're gonna do, the Vishay will accept, and he'll slowly plod to basically over top of you guys. And when he is over top of you guys, you can see just the scale that he's on is very different than you, and it doesn't have any problem kind of walking around these like huge tree trunk sized legs that hit the ground around you. Once he's over top of you, the tree spirit that was on top of him fades through and seems to grow out of the bottom of him. If you actually look on the creature here, you can see that he's got like roots that go through his body and down to the ground. And the same thing in the other direction. You can see when he's walking, they're like full-size trees that come from the bottom of his hands and go into the ground and just pass straight through them. So he sort of circles around to hang below Vishay, and Peravatan takes this sort of interior that he has. He has this little growing tree inside of him. He pulls it out. The tree very quickly wilts, and then he kind of crushes the wilted tree in his hands and says something in Sylvan that Rosalind, you'd get the gist of what he's saying. He's using a kind of a weird dialect, but basically what he's saying is a quick ritual phrase of, he repeats his name 3 times. He repeats something that says, it is offered, it is given, it is willingly offered, it is willingly given, a name spoken, a name spoken, a name spoken. And then, Madrat, you feel this sort of weird lifting sensation, like a burden that was on you is lifted off. Not a heavy burden, but like maybe a light backpack that you were wearing just kind of lifts off for a second and then is gone. There is this strange feeling that you have that you feel somehow slightly more alone, even in the middle of the group. And he takes it up, and you see the spirit start to cast a ritual. The spirit being Parivatan. And then Vishay is going to happily chatter along, and as he goes through, you can see his energies sort of come along. And from now that you're below the creature, and you can see from his perspective, it's not a solid thing. The wave of energies that he sends out in front of him isn't just a uniform thing. It's hitting things like you're hitting like stones and stuff under a surf. And you see that the waves hit and kind of wear down whatever is there and wear it flat until Vishay passes over it. And he will happily chatter on about liking to having things beneath his trees. And yeah, is there anything else that you guys want to do? Because he's going to take you the rest of the way through the galaxy trees into these huge areas of growth beyond. But the question I have for you guys is, what else would you guys want to do or ask or talk with these 2 spirits? Open up, as you guys have got a 4th success on the challenge. So the challenge is over for this scene.
So I'm not going to do anything really mechanical. She's just going to, since these 2 know her patron, she's going to give them updates on what he's been doing in the past, 50 years since he last saw them. Okay.
So Bastion will sort of like tap on Rosalind's shoulder to get his attention. And sort of...
excuse me 1 moment. Yes.
Oh.
Go ahead, Bastion.
And sort of whisper in his ear, you know about spirits, right? Would it be unwise to ask them if they know about the Watcher?
They know the Watcher. Why do you think they made sure to say their name 3 times like that?
But I mean, do you think it would be wise to see if they have any other information about the Watcher?
I feel like considering that, I mean, if you want to, they may not give that information out since it's clearly wanted. Depends on their mood.
It might also not come free. Margot like pipes him.
If they ask for a price, I'll simply accept not knowing. And after that, Bastion will like talk a bit louder and say, and ask them like, do you two know anything of what the Watcher is up to in this area?
So Vishay doesn't respond, but Perivatan stops his sort of humming, which you think might be kind of a language, or maybe that's just how he's casting his ritual. But you get this sense of kind of a held note for a moment. And then he says, "The place here is thin. Speak not of names of nameless things, of utterances that are forbidden. For they can see, they can hear."
Good to know.
I will take that as a no.
I believe
So
it is actually a yes, but don't speak about it.
Yeah, Rosalind, she didn't say it, but she kind of thought that might be the sort of thing that would be said.
So that's what Bastion says. Madrat, do you have anything else? I'm going to kind of go down the list real quick. Anything else that you'd want to say over the hour or so that they're going to take to get through the rest of the trees?
Nothing off the top of my head.
Okay. Margot?
No. I mean,
And-
actually, never mind. She would probably ask someone to ask for her. Why they can't see her, I guess. Like, I don't know how she'd word it, but probably in a smarter way than that. But, you know, just like, I'm curious. I want to know why they can't. Like, the exact reason.
I can do that.
Yeah.
You seem to not be noticing one of our companions. Why is that?
Oh, well, sometimes it's hard to notice things when you're like us. They're so unchanging in some ways and changing a lot in other ways. These things,
Sure.
and as he's moving, you can see he's like phasing through the ground sometimes. Objects are, well, they're just there. They don't really interact very much.
But she seems to be a person.
Things seem to be many kinds of things, but things are what they are. This companion of yours, they aren't spirit, they aren't mortal, they're not connected to things. So they can do things, but they won't have an impact like us.
But you can see them, and I point to Bastion.
Of course.
How very strange.
Not strange at all. I see your spirit. And I will say in a couple of weeks, I would love to see much more of it. There's a lot of things that are interesting tied to you, little ghost. I feel hunger, a great hunger come from you. And I see it would be wise to not meet you in my future.
Are they saying that to Bastion or to Echo?
He's saying was talking to you initially, and then he turns his head and is talking to Bastion.
Oh.
Right.
Bastion will just sort of tilt their head and not really say anything to that. Well, actually, yeah, Bastion will say that they have no intention of being here for very long.
Good, good. I am not saying I would not come out the victor in a competition of consuming things with your master, but I am as old as I am because I do not like competing.
Oh, at that, specifically, like the way they worded that, Margot goes from having a very visible expression of like, I wanted to commit murder, but I can't, to just like even more confused, but also still, I want to commit murder, but I can't. But just very confused. And she looks at Bastion and like, huh. How do they know their master if they can't see me? It doesn't add up.
Who is your master, anyways?
The Bloody Baron.
Yes, he is my commander, my liege.
The Bloody Baron?
Yes. Do you know of him?
I have not heard of them.
Then you
Do
are
they go by
lucky.
any other name?
Out of character, I couldn't hear what you just said.
Who they go by the other name, I think was what was said.
Yes.
I still couldn't make that out.
Sorry.
I asked whether or not they go by any other name.
Out of character, I actually don't remember that.
So yes,
Because I have a piece of information on my character sheet, on my information that might be relevant here, but I can't tell.
So this is a question that is for you. I'm trying to look and see if I gave you his name. Your character knows his name, but I don't know. So Jacques Desang is the guy's name. I don't know if you would use his name or if you would just use that he is the Baron Desang. He's the only male Desang Baron. So that usually is enough. Like if people don't know the Bloody Baron, he is the Baron Desang. The other two are baronets. So that is something. Whether your character would use Jacques' name or not is a 100% a personal choice.
Well, either way or not, that doesn't mean anything to me.
So Bastion Lancer, he is the Baron Desang, one of the greatest military generals of Queen Anne of the Vampire Courts.
Yes, Fernand is his name. You're lucky you don't know of him.
I will say that anyone who's from the mortal world and who isn't Echo knows Baron Desang. Like he doesn't get called the Bloody Baron really that much anymore, but Baron Desang, that's a name that rings a bell. He's a very powerful, influential vampire lord.
And why do you seem to possess a consciousness? I have never encountered a thing like you. She says to Bastion.
I am not sure I understand your meaning by that.
Where I come from, your kind are little more than tools. I do not wish to offend, but it is odd. They are of divine origin.
Sorry,
Foreigners are no divinity.
I hit a wrong button. Jeez.
It's all good.
I am, to my knowledge, a normal Warforged, albeit one trained in a way most aren't. I believe that I do not fully understand what you mean by soul there.
Well, they could see you which means you are not a thing.
But therein lies the issue. They know of their master, of Bastion's master. But Bastion's master is like me. So how do they know of the Baron, the Sun, if they can't even see me? That something doesn't add up.
Presumably they have heard of him. I imagine if we described you to them, they could hear us saying that.
If we take you to them, that is not a visible, tangible person.
So as you guys are kind of having this conversation, talking back and forth, kind of going through the, sort of existential conversation under these giant spirits of who has a soul, what does it mean? Whatever the humming, the ritual that the one spirit was doing completes. And you see him sort of sway back and forth under the belly of the bigger, under the belly of Vishay. And Parivatan says, 1,000 years I am too young to be so foolish. I have created debt.
Okay.
So, Rosalind, you don't know the exact words that he used, maybe not heard those exact phrasing, but spirits kind of have this idea of the weight of a favor. Like, there's this sort of ephemeral, like, I think a favor is about yay sized, and so you get yay thing from it.
Yeah.
This is basically the spirit saying he made an error, and he thinks that he is now that the scales are not going to be balanced, that he's going to be in debt, and that for a spirit is usually a pretty big problem if it's not something that they really wanted to have happen.
Oh. So I think that thing you had out of him was a bigger deal than transporting us over here. I think he may feel he is now indebted to you.
So as you guys are talking, Vishay goes, "Oh, what is it? You can't keep too many secrets to yourself. Not for me, I'll get it out eventually."
We're not.
He responded. Ooh, responded, did he? Yes. He is active now, and I can speak with them, a true connection. We should carry them further than we can. Well, I'm not going in there. I'm not going any further than needs must. Then a light of the way for them to follow. Okay. I'll do what I can. You're going to have to follow in the wake, little ones, and move quickly at that. I don't know exactly what you're trying to get to inside of this area, but I can get you pretty deep inside. But it's not going to last for very long. Our magic fades inside of the quarantine.
Okay. We're sort of in a rush as well.
Good. Mortals running around doing all sorts of things, bringing people with them that aren't really people. What a wonderful good day. A good day to be full. So the creature kind of lifts up a little bit, and then he slams his forward legs into the ground, and you see a ripple of energy head out in front of him. By the way, be careful. There's going to be a lot of little disturbances, little problems. There shouldn't be anything too big and too scary, but, things come into here. Not a lot of things come out. These disturbances will be holes in realities that you won't be able to pass through, but some of your energies might leak out, and it might, rip you into smaller pieces. Oh, only spiritually. You'll probably recover if you live.
Well, let's go then. What are we waiting for?
I don't say anything, but my expression says, let's go before I change my mind.
Yeah.
Yep, let's get moving.
So the ripple goes forward, and he is going to send you guys rushing in as you get to an area where I'm going to move down to, and I'll let you guys know this. This is the last part of the skill challenge. Find the entrance. Is this revealing? Yes, no, maybe?
See it.
Don't see anything new.
I'm hitting reveal and it's not doing anything.
Roll 20.
Right.
Oh, you you were hiding things accidentally, I think.
Yeah,
There we
it,
go.
it was saying reveal, but it was hiding. So I'm gonna.
Now I can see it.
So the interior of this, it breaks from being this weird sort of starry area into having these enormous broken trees and logs. And if you guys have seen what it looks like when there is a massive flood and then the waters recede, that's what this place looks like, only on a bigger scale. Like this is a dumping ground. And a lot of the things look old, look decaying, and there are these purplish fungi and waters running through everything. And for those of you guys that have the primal power source, there is a sort of unease here, like an itch between your shoulders that you can't quite scratch. And you guys can see the ground ripple ahead of you, and doesn't seem to be leading you in any particular way. It's just sort of a straight line forward. But as you guys go and enter into this area, Vishay will say from behind, well, take care, try not to die, and I hope I get to hear this adventure from your master, little Rosalind Ward. And then the other spirit says, you are looking for something very specific. Down by the waters, you'll find a way through, a way in, a way down.
Thank you. And I do hope you managed to hear a good story. It'd be a first from him.
Nice.
So I will let you guys know that this is the last part of the skill challenge. And the goal here is you have a very limited time of being in this wake, right? Being in this extended area of protection ahead of you before you have to deal with some of the bigger dangers that are in the area. And ideally finding an entrance into this Iron Star thing is the plan. So whoever would like to go may go. Since there is a pretty big narrative break between the last skill checks and this one, nobody's effectively already gone from initiative. But by default, it would be Bastion first, unless someone else has something they would like to do to sort of jump ahead.
Could I go? I have an idea.
Go ahead.
Well,
Okay. So Vishay had mentioned that there would be like disturbances even in the wake, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Margot is trying to get through them as fast as possible. But more importantly, she's just powering through, right? Like any pain that comes her way, she's just like ignoring it and keeping going, so that she doesn't waste any time. So the idea would be endurance to just power through and get there as fast or, with the least stopping as possible.
Okay.
I have a power I want to use. Give me 1 second. Be level 4, so it should be this one. I am spending a surge, so I.
Okay.
Did it roll? It didn't roll. Give me a second. Sorry. Did it go down? Nope, my sheet is. Give me 1 second. Let me just reopen my sheet real quick.
I don't see.
Huh?
I don't see anything, so it has not gone through.
Oh, yeah, it didn't show up on my end either. It's just being dumb. Should go through now, theoretically.
There we go.
Okay. So yeah, I am spending a surge, so that would give me a plus 10 to this endurance check.
Sounds good.
Dang.
Right. I imagine I don't get extra benefits for spending encounter power, since the encounter power I'm using is specifically to get a plus, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, just making sure. So
The thing is that if, kind of like what I said for utilities, because this is a utility power, if it is very appropriate, it might give you a bonus and also lower the DC, which this is going to end up being very appropriate.
All right. I'm gonna add a 10. There we go. That's a 22.
So
Yeah, I think that's good enough. Yeah.
So when you hit the first one of these little furrows, you are very certain that if it wasn't you specifically in this group, that it would have done a significant quantity of damage to your body. You get the sensation that you felt other people have of their soul leaving their body, only it's something trying to do it to you.
Right.
It doesn't do anything. It's just this little patch of cold. But when you pass through it, you get this strong sensation that you just stepped in a piece of the Shadowfell. Like,
Okay.
this was not just a hole in the plane, this was going somewhere else. And as you continue to power through them, you get these weird sensations of multiple planes that you're powering through, which does tug at your soul, or would. But after the first couple that you slam through, the sensation fades from being awkward to being kind of sensual. Like, this feeling of the kill, of actually removing the soul, having it done to you and being immune to it, gives you this rush, this feeling of enjoying your immortality.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
So you create a very safe path for others to follow. The only thing that I will say that you would get as well is that you can tell that all of the furrows that you hit do seem to be like hiccups, like the remains of portals or cuts in the plains, but everything seems to be towards this place. So all of these things are inward facing. None of this is like, oh, I could step in one of these puddles and get to the Shadowfell.
Yeah.
Like, this paddle is left over from something coming here from the Shadowfell or from the Prime.
Right. That makes sense. Perfect. Okay. So spending time trying to go through them would be a waste. Okay. Cool. All right.
Bastion, you're by default up, unless someone else has something they would like to do.
I don't have something I would like to do, but I would like to inquire what that means, because that seems very out of place.
What means, I guess, is the question.
The connection to the Shadowfell, like, I'm not even, like, I guess I would know that.
Yeah, it's very weird that it's here.
So if I ask the others if anyone knows something about that.
Nothing
Yeah.
specific. So,
So just look. I don't think anyone has. Well, I don't think anyone has any relevant information that I would give them that their character would know, I guess is the way to say that.
No automatic stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that Margot will probably think about, but once we're inside, yeah. Not right now.
By the way, I had. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, so for the skill challenge, you said there were like falling over trees and stuff all around.
Mm-hmm.
Could it be possible to like use athletics to try and climb up a tree and get a better view of like what's around and where we should be heading to find the entrance?
You could definitely do so. And again, just to give you kind of an idea, right? Imagine if you guys have seen when floodwaters recede and there's just like broken and mangled trees and garbage and debris and stuff on the shoreline. Imagine that, only the scale is so much bigger. If you kind of look on this map, you can see how small those people are on the splash screen. Imagine that's the sort of scale. So like, imagine you have one of those big piles of debris and detritus, and then you're the size of like a mouse underneath that thing. That's what you're seeing. So climbing up to the top of one of these things might be very beneficial because there's a whole bunch of stuff above you. So go ahead and hit me with one of those athletics checks.
Yeah. My athletics bonus is 13.
13. So that gets you a 32. So once you begin to climb up, after you get maybe 20 feet up into the canopy, canopy is a very vague term here because there's not a lot of things growing actively. You start to realize the higher up you get, the more things are deteriorating, the more things are breaking apart, the more footholds that vanish immediately because you slam your foot down on something that maybe 30 feet below you would be solid, but up here it sort of crumbles. And after a pretty harrowing kind of jump back and forth to land on the places that are still solid, you break open from the kind of enclosed area that you guys have been walking in to be able to see the sky, and the sky is dark. And off in the distance, maybe half a mile away, you see a massive structure. You see this.
Yeah.
Right.
Hot damn. Okay.
I will report that to the party, and like, I assume that's where we should be heading.
Looks like it.
Yeah, that looks about right.
So one thing I will say that you can tell is that the things that are kind of at the top look the most deteriorated, not only of the building, but of the other things around. So the closer stuff gets to this place, the more deteriorated and destroyed it looks. And from your vantage point, you can see that getting to, what effectively would be like the front gate of this place is going to be extraordinarily difficult. You can you can kind of see, okay, we vaguely need to go this direction, but the way that things kind of crumble when you go that direction, it's going to be difficult to do. It's going to be a hard passage. But what you can also tell is that kind of expanding from it, there's like a river that's below this, is kind of snaking around this, I wanted to call it a citadel, but it's not called that, the Fortress of the Iron Star. So there's this river that's coming around it, and you can see that below the main structure that there are these waterways, there are these little things that also have stuff that you can see that's more at ground level, maybe outposts of this thing, maybe smaller buildings or outbuildings that are away. So when you get a kind of brief kind of lay of the land, the main options you could have is either taking the river, and that will hopefully be relatively solid and kind of easy to follow to get you to the main building itself, to go try to take the hard path of cutting straight through the deepest parts of the debris to get up to sort of the front gate, or going and trying one of the sort of outbuildings, the little things that you can see that are around the primary structure. I'm asking you directly, but then this is also probably going to be something you would ask to the players as well. So what would Bastion's first insight be, or first impulse be, between those three options?
Bastion would probably prefer the direct route. I don't think they'd want to take the river. That sounds potentially opening them to a lot of unrecognized risks, and they probably also wouldn't immediately want to go to the houses in case there's someone not too nice living there.
To be clear, you don't see any houses. By outposts, I mean like smaller, like bunkers, or bunkers, I think is probably the best word, like smaller bunkers that are around the main fortress.
Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't change my opinion. Just like the same logic works there. There might be someone unfriendly inside.
Yeah. Margot would, for other reasons, prefer to just go straight. Doesn't matter if it's a difficult path, we'll be fine.
Yeah. I am also impatient.
That doesn't sound too bad. If we can smash our way in, it doesn't seem like anyone will get too upset about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good to me. So that is Bastion's contribution. Echo, you are next, unless somebody else has something they would like to do.
Yeah, I have a couple of ideas. So we said we would just smash right through, so I could use athletics or maybe endurance to do that. But I also, since this place seems to be kind of affected by multiple planes, maybe I have a piece of equipment within my armor or something like that that is somewhat suited to keeping direction, and maybe make a perception or insight check to do that.
So there are definitely places here that would make more sense for insight, but I think perception works really well for this.
All right, and since I'm using my equipment for that, could I expand the power armor's utility power? Like it isn't actually perception related, but could I expand that to like symbolize that I'm spending energy to do this?
Probably. I'm gonna take 2 seconds to glance at it before. I mean, the answer is yes. The question is, okay, so you're using the fly speed to kind of push through.
Yes.
Yeah. I like that.
So
Sounds
like,
great.
okay, so perception.
Yep.
Okay, what's my bonus?
So you're using a power, so to lower the DC because it's a utility power.
That makes sense.
Oh, that's a good roll.
All right.
Excellently done. So that will be enough to get you a third success on the challenge as well as a minor boon. So as you're kind of blasting through, you can use the sort of thrusters on your armor to make sure that all these points where the ground and the debris and stuff is falling away, this terribly unstable ground, isn't a problem, right? Like you go to step on something, if it doesn't support your weight, you get a little boost of the thrusters, and then you kind of work your way through the system like that. And once you've found the path, I don't want to say it's easy to follow you, but it is making it way easier to follow you as you alight on the different things in front of you, since you are extraordinarily heavy. And if anything can carry your weight, it's fine. And if it can't carry your weight, you're using those little boosts from your thrusters to kind of stay ahead of things. So you make it pretty quickly through. And as you guys make it through one of the bigger sections of debris, you guys can see that river, the one that you could have sort of followed to get closer, that's coming up in the distance. But you can also see that there's more things moving around here. There are tiny winged creatures that are flying along that even at a glance you can tell don't move quite right. They're too mechanical in their movements. So there's little constructs and golems and things, there's things moving around. And in the distance, you can see what at a glance looks like a herd of cattle that are going along in the river. But when you take a second glance at them, they reflect too much light. And you can see that their hide is somehow like crystalline. So there is life of a kind here, but it's very unusual looking. Actually, your character, Echo, would be less out of place with these sort of automatons around than everybody else.
Interesting.
So Madrat, you are up next, unless either Rosalind. Oh, actually, Rosalind, I think is the last person. So Madrat, you are next, unless Rosalind has something they would like to do.
May I ask a follow-up question to that before?
Go ahead.
Of course.
So does that mean it looks like Forerunner tech?
So some of the stuff looks like Forerunner tech. Some of it just looks like weird constructs. So magically created golems are not Forerunner tech. So like the cows look less like Forerunner tech and look more like elementals or golems. But the little things that are flying around and some of the golems you see patrolling the ground, those do look like Forerunner tech.
Right, so it's sort of a post-apocalyptic scrapyard thing infused with magic.
Yes.
Nice.
All right.
Okay, I've been pondering a use for staggering notes. The path is still dotted with, little like bits that are connected to other planes, right?
Kind of.
Okay. I mean, like, are they still a going concern?
Yes, they are still a going concern, but rather than thinking of them like little portals, think of them like after effects, like little wounds in the plane left behind.
I was just thinking, like, what if, like, this is a ranged power, and it does have it would push an enemy if it was successful. So what if I were to just play my horn, shoot notes ahead of me to sort of both trigger the wounds and maybe do my part to clear away the debris.
Yeah, so sort of the idea of if you think the room in front of you or the hallway in front of you is trapped, you take a stick, a long stick, and you poke the tiles. Same thing, only you're just running along, smacking your staggering note again and again.
Yeah, I would say, I had this image of him playing not really a song, just a loud note on the horn once in a while.
That sounds good. I like it. So the question is that what are you using as a skill that would be appropriate with it? If you don't have any ideas, I have some options that I would give you, but if you have an idea, then go ahead.
Oh, let's see.
No performance skill moment.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
I mean,
a bard spell, so
Arcana. Arcana, yeah, I was thinking Arcana since this is a magical effect and
Yeah.
a like sustained one.
Yeah. So the thing is with Arcana, right? It's being precise. Being precise is the hard part. So something like insight to see through like the hidden magical natures of things. It's insight's what you use to see through illusions. That would be helpful. Same thing with perception to see like changes in the ground and things like that to know where to shoot. You can use something like endurance to keep it going for long periods of time. Arcana can be used, but that's usually for making things change the way that they function a little bit. You're twisting the magic to do something that it's not really designed for. So having it like, rather than being a single note that hits the ground, since you're not trying to push a big object, you're just trying to trigger a trap more or less. You could try to do a staggering note, but do like a staccato, like a on the ground rather than a single shot.
Yeah, no, I can go with insight.
Okay.
Okay, hold on. Okay, got it clicked this time. Insight.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah, except for earlier.
You guys are destroying the skill challenge, doing extremely well. So that is the 4 success in the challenge. And you're able to just these blasted staccato notes blast apart pieces of the underbrush to the point where once you get down to like quote unquote solid ground, you get down to ground level, it's much easier to traverse. And you mostly just have to deal with the things gathered around. And the automatons and the little flying creatures, once you're off of the big trees and other debris and stuff and you're more at ground level, they don't seem to notice you at all. They seem to mostly be picking at things at the tops of the debris piles. So you guys would be getting to the crossing right in front of this massive fortress, and there is looks to be, might have been a road at one point, but it's partially buried. What part of the road might have been like a rope bridge that would take you across to the other side. It's long since fallen into disrepair. And there's several of those sort of crystalline cows that are meandering around, kind of right in the water, kind of near the path in front of you. This area looks less. The danger here looks like it is different, or the environment is different. There aren't these little puddles that feel like they're going to be, sucking you away. There's those wounds in the plain don't seem to be this far in. Maybe you've gone far enough in that they're not here anymore. But the same thing with, you're not in the debris. There's not this sort of slipping thing. There's not this constantly decay around. But now you have this small river to cross, and the liquid, instead of being like the colors of the waters you've seen before, is this brilliant sort of fuchsia, this pinkish purple with these little bursts of light coming through them. And all of the things that you see, the dead trees and things that are nearby, there are a couple things growing. They seem unusually colored. All of the leaves and growth near the waterways look like they are either this kind of bright white or this almost pinkish color. And the roots and the trees and the growth near the river itself looks kind of blackened, almost like the roots and things have been burned. So, I think Rosalind went as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So you guys you're at the crossing.
You're at the crossing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we need to cross the river. Is that the gist of it?
Yeah, it's not a very it does not look very deep. Like the cows are wading in it and walking across it, don't seem to have any problems. And it's not very wide. The little road that I was talking about that was broken apart, there's only like maybe a 20-foot section that you're missing if you go down there. Now there are other places you can see. There's a couple of trees that are fallen over that you could walk across. or you could just walk through the water. I say river. It's a big creek more than a river.
Yeah. So Rosalind's going to. She is personally going to try and cross the river using the log that's fallen in. Going to try and not touch the water. She doesn't trust it. So I'm going to say acrobatics to keep her balance on the logs as she crosses the river.
Okay.
So let me just pull up my character sheet again. There it is. Down in bottom.
Ooh. Oh no, it's a 19. That's fine.
Yeah, I was like, I'm Dex secondary, so it doesn't matter if I rolled a 5. That's still a 19.
Yeah.
So you quickly make your way across at the sort of narrowest part of the river, pretty close to where the fort is. There is that one, like I was talking about, that fallen tree. And as you go across, the tree feels wrong. Like, it doesn't feel like wood. It feels like a spongy interior with like something heavy, like thick leather wrapped on top of it. And there's like a gap between the bark and the actual thing itself. So it's slightly springy when you step on it. And when you pass through the white leaves, they just sort of disintegrate in a puff. And you see several of the cows are kind of looking up at you. And as you make it to the other side and land, look around, you seem like you're perfectly okay. The rest of the group behind you kind of gives that, all right, well, we made it across. Nothing's too dangerous. And right as you do that, you see a disturbance in the water near you. And this creature rises up from the water and then slowly turns to look towards you. It kind of looks like a bull, but not a bull that you want to see. So what I'm going to do...
So I am not personally familiar with them.
1 second.
Is there an image?
Just this.
Yes. 1 second. Give me just a moment. I may need to alter this very slightly because of the description and the passages and things. So I would probably do that between now and next session. But I do want to pull you guys over. So, correct where this is.
Ooh.
Oh boy.
It's okay. I gotta admit, I was thinking of the Red Bull from Last Unicorn.
I've had Last Unicorn on my head a lot because they released the author released a special edition, and I'm debating getting it. So this bull-like creature raises up out of the waterway, and it sends through this aura that, at first, well, for one of you guys, feels kind of comfortable, but for everybody else, you feel this aura of rapid decay coming from the creature that you guys are all inside of it. And so the beginning of session next time will be rolling initiative and jumping into this combat. I don't typically like to start the combats at the very end of session. I was hoping my initial plan was to get the end of this combat, which I think we probably would have been able to do if we were able to start on time. So
I actually prefer.
Go ahead.
I actually prefer a cliffhanger like that because that makes it easier to start the session. That makes sense.
No, I do like to do that, but the story beat that I wanted to stop on would be the next one. So the one past what's happening here was the initial goal. So I wanted to wrap up the combat, get to the next story beat, and then have that for next session. So this is where we're going to be starting off. I don't know if you guys have. This is a question for you guys as players. I don't know if you've fought one of these creatures before, but this is a classic monster if you've not fought one before.
Yeah, I've heard of them, but I have never fought one.
I've never heard of them.
My only context is Final Fantasy, but
my context is The Witcher because someone asked for Caterpillar Flash meat. no idea beyond that.
I think I
Well, also-
vaguely remember the D&D version, but not well enough to say much.
Also,
Well-
these have nothing to do with Minotaurs, right?
No.
Okay.
The important questions.
Okay, then I really am hoping that my thoughts on vulnerability are correct. It'd be funny.
Well, I am also going to say that, again, I with new groups, I do try to be a little bit more open with what my plans are and what we're doing here. This session was designed to be a little bit easier to not have everyone's macros perfectly ready for. So it would have had like one combat in it, maybe, and also give a big bulk of the sort of exposition of the point out where you're going and have a goal of what you're doing. So next session is going to be significantly faster pace, and a good chunk of what's coming up is going to be quite a bit faster with more combat, if not more combat options. If today was a little bit slow for you and you're thinking, hey, I'd like to speed it up a little faster, that is what's going to be going forward. If you have any other questions, comments, concerns, feedback for me, I would love to hear it. I do like to hear what you're liking and disliking from the session, because I can alter what I've written and sort of how I run stuff to better fit what the group wants to do.
I have a
I
thing.
feel like this is the usual D&D thing where until a group gets a thing going, when given multiple options, we will spend 30 minutes making a discussion about what hat to wear.
Yeah, and
You know?
Echo did start talking first, so go ahead and finish what you were saying, Echo.
Right. I am both indecisive and impatient, which is not a good combination. And I sort of struggle to concentrate when we talk for half an hour about stuff, but I always also come up with stuff. I would like things to speed up somehow, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And like I said,
this sounds probably worse than it is because I still had fun during the session.
Yeah. So
and another thing is that I don't mind being an outsider, but I'm having a bit of trouble, and I might have to think about this. But there are all these little things that Echo probably doesn't know that are incredibly mundane, like what most plants and creatures look like that she has never encountered, and things like that. And I am also interested in the backstories of the other party members, and I sort of have to balance this impulse of constantly asking questions and doing all these things because we don't know each other. We had a bit of time off screen to get to know each other, but we didn't really play that out. So that's a thing that I want to do, but I feel like it keeps slowing everything else down. That makes sense. I usually don't play in parties where everyone doesn't know each other, so that's kind of new for me.
I mean, that's why I've been kind of having her drop backstory noodle incident comments occasionally whenever she talks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would have to an actual conversation about that, what's going on with you, where you're from, and all that. But I feel like that's not relevant to the adventure, so I don't want to slow things down with that.
So give me 1 second. Let me respond to that. I'm going to say two things for it. First thing is going to be the showing you what I'm sort of seeing as a DM, what I have had experience with from my players is having this thing being shown kind of who these people are and having these conversations tends to work better than the ask a bunch of questions. Is kind of have this a little bit of mystique of, oh, I have this running list of questions. And then you guys are going to have at some point on your choosing an extended rest. You're going to have 12 hours of inside of the Solace Bowl at some point to be able to have this sort of break where we can talk and we're not kind of under the clock and we're resting and things like that. Where I think that's going to be the best point to do that. And I will kind of do something to allow it to set up of prompting you guys to kind of talk about things. But the other side of that, and this hopefully will help out, is I'm very big on what's called spotlighting. So spotlighting is really big on, especially in a game that's as short, is having either encounters or having an entire session where one character is kind of in the spotlight. They're in their element. They're the expert here of what's going on. And I feel like you guys know who was the spotlight for this session.
It was Rosalind, since her backstory came up, it could be relevant to move the thing forward.
So that spotlight is going to move. It's not going to be Rosalind every session. And by the time you guys have rotated through and you get to 3 or 4 spotlights, I hope, and my experience so far has been with other groups, that usually it ends up being the case that whoever's not been spotlighted yet starts to kind of add in their things, or they have a way to react to the other spotlights that have happened. And you'll each have that session of being kind of the center of attention. So this session was Rosalind. And then as we get to the next session, you'll be able to see, okay, well, I now know who the spotlight for this chunk of things are. And maybe your sort of outsider feel will be not quite as pronounced as the spotlight starts to move around. I hope.
Right. Like I don't have a problem with being an outsider here. That's fine. But the flip side to that is, like, I knew there were some things going on with Rosalind and Midrod and the others. And I feel like I maybe got half of it. So I don't really know what's going on. If that makes sense.
I don't mean this in an offensive way, but good.
All right.
Like because you don't really know these other people, right? So what I would say is, if you want to kind of get the fullest out of that, is take a note, write it down. Like, hey, this weird thing happened and I didn't really get it. I'll bring it up with with the other person later. Like how it would be if you guys are doing all these things and everyone's having to act and do stuff. You might have that thing of when you have time to rest and you have time to talk, be like, hey, you did this thing, or you were talking about this thing today. I don't know what any of that is. What the hell is going on with you? That's something that could be better served when there isn't this sort of narrative pushing forward. So I would say take some notes or write something down or whatever. Keep that sort of suspension of mystery going, because I will say that in my world and in my games, people that do that tend to really enjoy the payoff that comes afterwards.
Right.
I can second this as someone who has played in Theory's games.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's that one thing from like 5 sessions ago that we saw. This is what it means. Holy shit! It's really cool feeler.
Yeah. And I gotta say that for somebody who's run some games himself, yeah, the spotlight system does work. That's just so when I do it, it's more like it's similar to the games really like the. So I basically designate everything that's arc for a character. Then they go to his place, go to a dungeon, then we move on to the next character. That's everything.
This is shorter, and so the spotlight will move a little bit.
Obviously. Yeah. I'm just saying, yeah, it's a great idea. It's honestly probably the best way to handle when you have a group of 5 or 6 people like this.
Mm-hmm. Does anyone else have any other feedback for me?
I really enjoyed the session, like all of it. Honestly, I think the only like bits that were like, yeah, this could have been a little bit better was like mostly stuff you'd expect from the first session of any game, which was, us as players kind of figuring each other out and figuring out what our characters are going to be doing and the dynamics. But that's like normal, so obviously no issue there. As far as like the session itself goes, I enjoyed everything. There's not one bit of it that didn't feel really cool. So
yeah.
I think the only thing I wish we got to the combat, because now I'm going to be excited for it for a whole week. But yeah. That's the only thing.
I just can't. So yeah, I do wish we had gotten to the fight. I was looking forward to it the moment he said the ball rolls out of the water. Oh boy, time to murder. But then session ends.
Well, something to look forward to.
I will try and leave a few minutes early next time. Hopefully, it's not aligned in a bad way.
Good night.
All right. Good night.
Yeah. Goodbye, guys. See you next week.
Yeah, I'll be on Discord.
Okay,
Gotcha.
I'll still be around.
But
See you all. Stay safe.
see ya. Take it easy.
Okay.